So I have not been able to get through all of your. I'm still like reading through the complaint part of it. It's very detailed, very extensive, and it's really interesting how you started really looking at this when you were age 15. You said.
Yeah. Battery just. Yeah, I discovered the topic kind of randomly. I came across it. I knew about what it was from 2011 when I was in grade 5 from a health class, and my mom just told me, "Oh, don't worry about that. That just happens, and that's fine." Yeah. And I just didn't. Something about that just didn't feel right. I didn't even know about the harms. I just felt like I didn't like the idea that someone did something to me there without my permission when they didn't have to. I didn't like it.
For sure.
Something about that intuitively didn't feel good, but I kind of pushed it aside, brushed it off. I thought, oh, they must have done it for some good reason, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. They could never do anything that would harm me, right? Right? There has to be some good reason. Please let there be a good reason. So it kind of evolved.
Same story here, but at a very different age. I was in my late 30s. I was 35 when my first son was born, and that's when I really first started seriously looking at it. I just assumed, I thought it was just a flap of extra skin. That's, just like a lot of people say, it's just extra skin. It's not just extra skin. That's like calling your eyelid extra skin.
What's just as the minimizing word and extra is the othering of it, as if it's just this thing that's waiting to be removed. Yeah, imagine calling any part of a woman's body just an extra part that you can feel free to take off. I'm sure you've obviously thought about that a lot.
The labia, just get rid of that extra labia, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately they do that to intersex children a lot. Sometimes if they have abnormal amounts of labia, or if they have a clitoris that doesn't fit their standard amount of whatever, they will impose that on someone's body who's healthy. If they can urinate, if they can do everything that they need to do, and there's no health need for it, then it doesn't make sense to make a cosmetic surgery on a child.
Yeah,
of course. So I clearly, the day that I found it out was July 11, 2015.
Wow, exact date. Wow.
I know the exact dates of a lot of things. That's just something about me. I just know the dates of things when they happen.
Wow.
Especially anniversaries of things. I'll just remember. Remember which day I submitted this complaint, or which day I had this conversation about this topic, or which day I first got to reach out to certain organizations or activists. So basically that discovery kind of set me into a tailspin. I came across it from a strange source, actually. I don't know if you know the YouTube channel, very controversial, Onision Speaks.
Yeah.
And he's I can agree on this topic with him. Because when I saw this, I was like, well, what he's saying makes sense, but I didn't just take it at that. I went and searched around. I saw videos. I think I saw the elephant in the hospital soon after. I saw medical publications just about what are the harms that result.
Yeah, this is like one of the first things that I read from Dr. Paul Fleiss. There's an article in Mothering Magazine. There were actually 2 articles. I don't have the other Mothering Magazine. Wish I would have kept it at this point. But anyways, I was like, okay, well, that's one person's view. So, it's like I wasn't satisfied with that, and I delved deeper too.
Yeah, we need a larger sample size when we're deciding on things. Yeah. So
now I have a whole bookshelf and a half of books on the topic.
I mean, it makes sense. There's just this rabbit hole of this knowledge that people don't like to talk about. It's taboo because it's inconvenient. Oh no, we don't want to make people uncomfortable, especially the doctors who keep doing it. Right?
Yeah.
Where it's strangely more taboo to speak up about it than it is to actually keep perpetrating this harm.
Nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Yeah. So I remember shortly after I'd made the discovery, I went on a vacation with my family. And the entire time I was upset about this. I was ruminating about it. And I was very scared about it. I thought, oh no, what will my parents think? Will they know? Will they believe me? And I thought, of course they won't. That's why they allowed it to happen. They don't know.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
cognitive dissonance kicks in.
Yeah. And at that point, there was a lot of resentment already. I knew deep down that they didn't want to hurt me, but the idea that they allowed me to be hurt, and then the idea that they wouldn't believe me about it, was just not something I wanted to be the case. But it was. I remember I approached my older brother about it first, just 2 years older than me. I was 15, he was 17. And I just said, hey, there's something bothering me. And it was 4 or 5 days after. I was just really thinking about it. And I told him, this topic, circumcision, is bothering me. It's bothering me a lot. And he said, what, you're uncircumcised? That was the first thing that came out of his mouth. But he's a kid. He doesn't know anything about it. This is a manifestation of what we're living with.
Yeah, he didn't go down the rabbit hole yet.
Yeah, he thought, oh, if there's something wrong, you must not have had this operation done.
Quite the opposite,
right?
Yeah.
So I think he was a bit off put by it. I don't know. I probably had no knowledge about it. Maybe I would be too. Who knows? So, but then he went to my mom first and told her that I talked to him about it, which I was a little bit.
Oh gosh.
Oh, I trusted him to keep that between us. And then so my mom kind of came to me and kind of was a little bit perplexed. She was like, what's this about? What's this about? She wasn't mad or anything. How can she be mad at me for being concerned about something, right?
Yeah.
Well, some parents are. Like, how dare you
question them? Yeah.
Yeah. So she just said, no, you just don't worry about that. There's a good reason. Hygiene, HIV. It was all these things, like female cancer.
All excuses. Yep.
And I have lots to say about each of those, but I won't go off tangents. So months turn into years. And I first started talking to a friend at school who's very good. He's a good friend and he's intact. And I would say, so you don't have any problems, do you? You're not, there's no pressing discomfort or anything for you. And he's like, no, it's just, this is how my body is. And I was like, we joked like about, it's so hard to clean. I was like, yes, it's all like as if you're dealing with a Rubik's Cube in the shower. It's just so hard to clean.
I often respond to people about this. It's like, who the heck doesn't enjoy cleaning their genitalia?
That's a different approach.
Come on. Even women admit to, enjoying to clean themselves down there.
Lots of people have different feelings about cleaning themselves, and I never thought it was a chore. I mean, it's like, washing behind my ears. Oh my gosh, it's just so much work. I'm going to be late now.
Bloop. Wee! Oh, that smells so good. Clean.
Maybe not that kind of cleaning, but I guess after a while, I was able to bring it up with my dad a few times, and my dad was he's less confrontational. He's very passive and very reserved most of the time. And so when I told him about it, and he was like, at first he was like, what? I couldn't let you have that funny looking thing on your body. I know, it's crazy. Like, how could a parent say that? Well, but he didn't know. He was just totally like in his own world about it. Yeah. My dad's not dumb. He's just, this is what he was told. He went along with it. Yeah. His friends from just thought it was normal. So he thought it was normal. And that's just it's just something we do. That's how they thought. And I'm just thinking, how would you not look into that? How would you not just at least, I'm making a permanent choice for my son. Yeah. Okay, what are the natural results of this choice?
I have to admit, I was ready to let my son get cut. It was only by the luck of the draw that my wife changed from an OB to a midwife, and the midwife provided, some articles like the one from Paul Price. So, and this was about 16 years ago. Yeah, this was actually 16 years ago, maybe a little more now. And I didn't even I kicked myself now. It's like, what an idiot I was to just go along with whatever doctors say.
Mm-hmm. It definitely does play with my perception of and my trust. This topic alone does make me call into question how things are in the medical world. As someone who has interest in becoming a health professional in my life, because that's my stream, I'm going to graduate from biochemistry next term, and I had my heart set on some health related thing because I think it's very interesting. I like clinical related things, and I have to keep telling myself, most of the time doctors do what they're supposed to do. Most of the time they're only helping the patient. Most of the time.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when you see these blatant examples of neglect where they're doing through actions and omissions, harming patients, vulnerable patients, and they're not even willing to evaluate what they're doing. They just want to do it, or they just want to avoid embarrassment. But because if they stop doing it, then they're basically saying, oh, maybe there was something wrong here. So they just continue to search for another reason for it.
Yep.
I'm sure you're very familiar with that.
Have you seen the documentary American Circumcision?
I saw excerpts of it and I was shared the link, but I haven't watched it all yet. It might be a bit taxing for me because I think I get triggered.
Yeah, I know. There's only, maybe 2 triggering parts of it, because I'll just give you, the very first part, they show the baby, right? Or Brendan show the baby getting ready to wheel down the hallway, sitting in a glass box. And then it cuts off, and then it goes into the debate and the talk and everything like that. So for those of us that know the harm that baby's going to go through, that part right there might be triggering. And then the part where they actually do the cutting, that's also triggering. But everything else, it's the debate going back and forth. And some of us are going to get triggered at, say, Brian Morris, for example.
Oh, I was shared a link for a medical repository that is public, and I saw some of their info on that. Some of it was okay, where I thought, okay, that itself is, at least you mentioned, there is sexual dissatisfaction sometimes. I'm glad you mentioned that. Of course, glanced over, like, oh, look, clean, good. Oh, by the way, sexual dissatisfaction. But don't worry about that. We won't mention that again. It's like, wouldn't that be a priority if we're forcing that on a child?
Yeah.
I certainly don't want that forced on me. I don't know if they do, but I hope they don't. So
it's hard to know whether men are going to have sexual dissatisfaction because it's happening at such an early age. They have no frame of reference to know what they're missing. So
yeah, they might not have had occasion to know what is the difference.
Yeah.
So I see multiple citations from Brian Morris, and I thought, are you kidding me? He just publishes these junk literature reviews.
Yeah.
He doesn't do any research.
And he self-references.
Ooh, he just creates the self-propagating web of lies. I've even some of his when I've read some of his things, one of the things that it said in one of his papers was that men will something about how they were only going to want their foreskin so they can do homosexual docking, and I was like, what is that?
So what?
First of all, why is that the most relevant thing? And 2, is that a bad thing? Do we need to cut off parts of babies to stop them from being consensually pleasuring each other? I don't know. Or is he trying to use that to just say, oh, they just only want it for this? Like,
talk about being homophobic. I mean, that's.
It's like, why do you care what adults do with their healthy, bodies consensually? Why does it matter what they want it for? It's their body. It's not your. It tends to be that the people who have the most issues going on are the ones who need to have a need to force things onto people, like body modifications in the case of Brian Morris. But he's a well-known
fetishist.
Yeah, he gets into some other territory I've heard, and
You may not have seen my video. I asked Brendan for permission for this. I took a piece of the interview with Brian Morris out of the documentary, and then I kind of went on after he said it. It's like, okay, I said some funny things about it. It's like he must have a seriously botched know, penis or something like that.
Yeah.
To think that touch doesn't matter or touch isn't important. I think that's why he said touch isn't important. Like, are you freaking kidding me?
It's sad.
That's the craziest thing.
I'm glad that's not important for you, but it can be important for other people.
Oh gosh,
I'm not just speaking for myself. So it doesn't matter if it's not important in your opinion. It doesn't mean you imposing something on others is warranted.
Yeah.
Why don't you let other people who feel like touch doesn't matter volunteer for it themselves, right? So strange, but honestly, really weird how they choose him. He's low-hanging fruit there. Like, of all the people, you choose him. It's such a spotty record. It's really weird.
Yeah. But well, when you look at the U.S. medical system, it's very much capitalistic. So it kind of makes sense that they focus on the medical benefits, the purported medical benefits of all too. They're purported. They're not proven. None of them are really truly proven,
or even logically consistent.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not going to make more money by telling us why we shouldn't have the extra surgeries. They're only going to make money by telling us, oh, sign here. Oh, benefit, good, hygiene. Yeah. Right? Sad. Yeah. And I don't think in Canada that conflict of interest comes into play as much. I talked to John Geishaker at Doctors Opposing Circumcision, and he told me that one thing he finds odd is that the amount of money that they make from this behavior isn't very much. Yeah, they pocket a fee every time, but in terms of for a hospital, he said it's like chump change. So if you make $200,000 for your hospital more every year, that's for hospitals. It's not a lot.
Small. Yeah.
What, it's like the less than a salary of
you figure 3,000 or 3,000 these being done per day though. Adds up. And when you look at hospitals as as networks like Kaiser Permanente, for example, like, well, that up across the board, it's like, wow, that's gonna change. Plus, I haven't verified this anywhere in particular, but I understand that they sell, or someone sells those.
Yes, and it's not a secret either, because when they need experimental tissue, or I think it's used for reconstructive purposes as well, they use neonatal foreskin-derived fibroblasts. So
you can even go find this on Amazon.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I think there's rules about biohazardous material for Amazon, but that's what they do. It's very sickening. It makes me feel like I'm chattel, like I'm property. Like they take something off of me. I'm a commodity now.
It's how's it any different than stealing any other organ from individuals and selling it on the black market?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Although it's in some ways, I'd rather have a kidney out, because there's no outward sign of it. It doesn't affect sexual pleasure, I presume, and you function fine without the kidney. It doesn't change your sensation or your sexual satisfaction, right? So it's like, okay, I don't know. The kidney is, in some ways, the kidney is more invasive, because opening up one's
going inside more instead of just getting
viscera
outside.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's extremely invasive to do something to my genitals that I don't want. That is violent. It's battery, because there's no adequate consent and it's a harm. So it's very weird, and I would say I would prefer the kidney out. It wouldn't make me question my, it wouldn't make me struggle with stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, and they could say, oh, look, there's benefits for, I mean, even if they took kidney out and sold it, it's like a similar thing. We wouldn't do that. Oh, they don't need 2 kidneys. Just take off one of them and we can donate. It's like,
and then now we have half the chance of getting kidney disease, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it's like, or maybe
you can say you can find medical benefits for removing pretty much any body part, right? I mean, remove the lips so it's easier to clean the teeth.
Instead of waiting for a kid to get a cavity, pull their teeth out and say, you just wear dentures. You will never have to worry about dental health.
Yeah, just grind up their food for them so they can just,
very weird.
Suck it through a straw.
It's really, I think they could do better, even with their spurious reasons. Just come on, you can do better than
Yeah.
those health benefits.
To me, it's obviously a desperate attempt to justify what they've already been doing in the past, and in order to keep us from being able to sue them, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah, it's
throw
the
them in
surgery
jail.
in search for a justification. Usually it's the
Exactly.
reverse. An illness necessitates some treatment.
Yeah.
This is just a treatment.
I always say, if this wasn't ever imagined in the first place, if genital cutting was never, imagined up till today, to say, just imagine a world where it was never a thing unless there's like definitely a medical need. And then someone suggested, well, why don't we cut this body part off to reduce chances of such whatever disease? It would be in that person's lap to prove that it's a good idea, not the other way around.
Yes,
we're us
on them.
Advocates, us genital autonomy advocates, all these PhDs and doctors and bioethicists and all that who are trying to prove that it's harmful and that it's unethical and all that stuff. Like, we shouldn't have to be proving it.
Yeah, we're going above and beyond by proving that. The onus is on them because they're making the claim that they want the change of someone's body. So then you must justify that change, especially when you're doing it on someone who doesn't want that or can't consent to it. Exactly, right? Yeah. We have the easiest position to defend. Well, it doesn't turn out like that because of the biases, cultural, social, all of that stuff. And so it's truly a great example of a medical thing in which societal preferences, non-medical, I guess, feelings or something, or just craziness creeps into the medical fields, and where medical treatment doesn't reflect medical need, individual medical need, it reflects more the cultural, social. And you see that a lot in these publications where they say, oh, well, you must take into account the parents' religious, social. Why? We're talking about medical treatment. Your religion does not have a place in medical treatment. We're talking about someone who has their own human rights, who deserves medical care that serves their best interest, not your preferences.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes those will be the same thing, but not in this case.
Yeah.
So when we're throwing the child's well-being under the bus and saying, oh, well, the parents might hurt their feelings if we don't do what they say.
It's like how Marilyn Manson got fired. It's like, it should be the other way around. I mean, yes. I think more parents like me, and I've done some of this myself, need to be calling hospitals and clinics and say, hey, I'm complaining here that I wasn't provided sufficient information, and people like Marilyn Manson should be in these hospitals telling people the truth and not being afraid that the parents might get upset about hearing the truth. It's your patient is the one that you're about to cut, not the parents.
Exactly right. A doctor must ask themselves, who is my patient here? Is treatment needed? What is the most effective and least invasive way of doing the treatment? And does this individual patient, infant, have rights that I must respect? Right? As a parent cannot override the child's basic human rights. It says, the charter itself.
Yep, in the Canadian charter.
No one can just say, no, I'd like you to not have that right. I'm just going to go ahead and enforce this on you.
Yeah.
That's not allowed. I don't care what your feelings are or what the parents feel. Yeah, the parents want what's best for their baby, but they don't always know. Mm-hmm. So a doctor doesn't have to drop what they're doing and say, oh, yes, I will do what you say. Doctors have their own authority. They have their own agency, and they should be exercising that to do what's best for their patient, because they have a fiduciary duty of individuality to their patient. Yeah. And that doesn't change no matter what forms the parent signs.
Yeah, and parents will often appeal to the authority of doctors. So it's like, okay, doctors, is this a good idea? And some will say that it is a good idea. Some will try to, stay on the fence, and try not to
that's what they do.
Appear biased or whatever. And then there are some good ones out there that say, this is not necessary and it's harmful, et cetera, et cetera.
They'll say, I won't do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In Goldman's book, there was a little excerpt where they showed radio interview with the doctor, and it said, "Oh, you got it." Mm-hmm. And it shows, yes, I have 2 copies of it, and because both my parents actually read it. So there was a little chunk of it where it says, okay, here's a radio interview with the doctor. And the doctor says, oh, well, yeah, there's benefits. Well, no, there hasn't been shown to have any benefits. Yeah, I don't think it can be said that there's any reason to do it. Oh, yeah, it's good for the child. It's like blatant contradictions in the same 2 minutes. It's like you're desperately trying to assume two diametrically opposed positions at the same time.
Crazy.
It's not working.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, it is for the people who want to keep doing it. They can be a wishy-washy. Well, we won't take a stance on it, but by not doing anything and approving of it, you are taking a stance. You're enabling this. You're condoning it, right? Yeah. So a lot going on there.
So I think I pretty much finished up your. Yeah, well, I've gotten through the part of your complaint where you Appendix B, where you talk about the impact. So I've struggled, two sides of me on this whole thing. First of all, before I even came out, I call it out of the closet on this topic. I was worried about upsetting friends and family and coworkers and maybe affecting my professional life and all that for it. But then I thought, well, if I look 15, 16, 17, 18 years down the road from today, and I run into a young man like yourself who is complaining about it, I need to be able to say, here, look, I was speaking out for you. I was trying to get people to change, or learn about this issue and why it's harmful and all that. But then I've come across another challenge because, and this took me years, and I still continue to realize the ways that I'm harmed by this practice. So I'm torn about sharing those ways with other men, because I see, just like when I'm reading through your stuff, how the realizations of how we're harmed is very traumatic to us, right? So there's of course the trauma from getting cut, right? But then there's the traumas of learning about how we're harmed and what we're missing.
The direct and the indirect trauma.
Yeah. So it's clear to me that you do recognize some harms from what you've presented in your Appendix B about the impact. But I'm kind of wondering if there's some other things that you might not have considered yet. And if you'd be willing to listen to some of the things or the ways that I recognize I'm harmed, and maybe they apply to you too.
Sure. Who knows? I mean,
okay. Yeah. So it sounds like you're really tight. You got like a high and tight cut, right? Do you know if you were cut with the Bell method or like a Mogen clamp?
I have a good idea based off of what is left behind.
Okay.
Why specifically do you ask?
So if you're looking at penises, of course I've seen porn and paid attention to this, but you look at the penis and you got the head of the penis here, right? And then you've got two tones. You actually have technically three tones. You have the tone of you can see the scar line, right? It's usually a darker color. But you have the inner mucosa, and then you have your outer shaft skin, right? And when that goes up, it's like the inner mucosa is what's on the glands. Okay. So, and I realized, well, the people that have been cut with Bell methods are going to have less inner mucosa, Gomco Clamp or Plastibell.
Mogen.
Right. Okay, so with a Mogen Clamp, you have more of your inner mucosa left. Right. So like for me, I was born in 70, so I should look to find out when the Gomco Clamp and Plastibell were created, but
1950. No, the Gomco was in the 30s and Mogen was 1954.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyways, I could see that if I were able to pull, I can't. I can like push my penis down and make my inner mucosa cover my glands, but it's so extremely uncomfortable to do that. So I have a lot of intermucosa, and I think that because of it, I have my frenular area, right? And if you've seen the Sorrells study,
Mhm.
it's in your complaint, and it shows, the frenular area is the really hot
Lowest
spot.
threshold, yeah.
Absolutely. And after learning that, and then paying close attention to my own,
Body.
body, I mean, that level of detail, I never thought of it that, I never paid that close of attention. But it's like, oh yeah, that is really, really, an important spot. So I feel lucky that I was cut with a Mogen clamp, as much as I was cut way too much, because I have about the same amount of shaft skin as I do intermucosa. It's like a 50-50. Right. And then I go down to scrotum, which is hairy. So yeah, if you're cut with like a Mogen clamp or a Jewish barzel or something like that, where they just pull the skin up and then they cut up here, then yeah, you're gonna have your intermucosa that was still covering your glands, and it'll unroll down onto your shaft. If you were cut with a Bell clamp, it's cutting down here closer to the, it's cutting the skin down lower, and then you end up having just a very little bit of
Yeah,
intermucosa and
I've
less
seen the
frenular area.
differences.
What's that?
I've seen, yeah, I understand the differences.
So
So what were you thinking this about? Some like I mean, personally, I do have the frenular area, fortunately. So I think I'm in a very similar situation for you with that you experienced. Does were you were saying that this connects to some of the harms or the trauma?
yeah, so for men that have less frenular area, they're probably sensing. They probably have less sensation. And again, you look at the Sorrells study, you can see the more sensitive areas is where the intermucosa is. All the way around. So
yeah, it could be worse for me. I mean,
I mean, I've heard of men that have had a freehand done where their whole frenular area is completely carved out.
Imagine someone doing that to a child and thinking, "Yeah, I'm really helping them." Well, what are you doing?
Well, have you ever heard of Jessica Penn?
No.
Okay, she's very active on Twitter. I also found her on TikTok. Try to chat with her, but she doesn't respond to me anymore. She thinks that male circumcision is okay, but anyways, she's really good. I bring her up because she got cut when she was 18. A woman, right?
Yeah.
So she had some like labiaplasty and other stuff done in that area, and she ended up getting botched. The guy cut way a lot more than what she asked for, wanted, or whatever, and then she, after she's only 18, right? So she didn't really know a whole lot of what's going on in the world and all that. So she starts studying this topic and all that, and she discovers that the medical textbooks like have zero information on the innervation of the clitoral or the vulva. Zero. At least they have some innervation information in the textbooks.
Got the internal pudendal nerve.
Yeah. So she's been on a rampage for quite a while to get things changed. She's even done, dissecting and stuff like that to put together stuff.
I made a mistake. It's not internal. I know that doesn't matter, but I just didn't want to. I don't know what I'm talking about. I had to learn about all the innervation in an anatomy course. The pelvis and which things go where. So I'm just on that.
Yeah.
So she seems to be an FGM advocate.
Anti-FGM, yeah.
Okay.
She's well. I'm not completely sure. I don't think that she's against women getting things done down there for themselves, but
as long as it's consensual.
But she's definitely pissed at the medical industry for not
telling her,
paying attention to this before choosing to do surgeries on women down there. And here in the U.S., it seems to be a very popular, very growing surgery to be or surgeries. There's different kinds of surgeries that women can ask for down there. So anyways, so yeah, it parallels, right? The medical textbooks lack a lot of information about the male genitalia too, particularly the intact male genitalia. So, and so I was talking about, the Mogen Clamp versus the Gomco Clamp and all that stuff. And you know that the Mogen Clamp was sued out of business?
Out of business.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and the reason being is because they would
amputated the glands of infants oftentimes because,
Yeah.
and yes, I know the details. It's so crazy. It's so safe that they were sued out of business for harming children.
Yeah, safe. Okay.
Yeah.
And how many botches occur, and how many, how often do urologists have to fix things and whatever.
That weren't broken in the first place. I know, right? Crazy.
Yeah.
Creating problems.
It would be nice to have a study that was done that would identify like a percentage of botches or
because there's different
revisions.
Severities. It's like they create the problem. They say, "Look, we fixed the problem. We're the heroes." All right.
Yeah.
That's one way to call it. It's very, I think we were, I guess, if you want, I can go through from after the discovery and how things changed, if you'd like, because I know we went on we went and covered a lot of stuff, and it was interesting.
Yeah. Well, I have a list of some of the physical attributes. So I kind of addressed the frenulum and depending on that. You're aware that it's there to protect the glands. Even the AP said that in like 1971. In their very first policy on this. It's kind of weird how they yanked that out in the future revisions.
They did?
Yeah, you don't find it anywhere in the policy. Any kind of functions or features of
it's a forbidden knowledge or something.
I don't know. I don't know why they took it out. It's and that's why there's this lawsuit right now going on. Circumcision is a fraud.com, which I shared with you. So that this family believes that they're being fraudulent, convincing people to
they are knowingly publishing misleading information. I even saw their 2012 statement, the benefits outweigh the risks, and saying that it's so contradictory. And I'm not sure if you found the table of basically the breakdown of the AAP statement. This is wrong because of this. They didn't explore this. This was dishonest. Very methodical, and it was very good. I liked that table.
Or you can watch Eric Klopper's video.
I should.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it. I'll have to check that out. I think I'm Facebook friend with him now. I
didn't
know exactly who he was.
It's excellent. He rips them apart methodically.
Just rakes them through the coals. Good.
Oh yeah. It's called Sex and Circumcision: An American Love Story, and it's free on YouTube. So
wow, I'll check it out. It's interesting. It's definitely the prepus has many roles: immunological, sexual, sensory, and protective. And it's not hard to think of why that would be true.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that's missing in what that list is you just gave is rolling mechanism.
Oh yeah, I mean, I did say that it precludes the gliding function, which is somatosensory pleasure. It confers some kind of, and also the motility makes it so that not as much lubrication is required. It definitely.
So do this sometime. I made a video of this. I did the video without any practicing beforehand. I just I'm going to try this, but I'm going to record myself while I'm doing it. So I took a little piece of double-sided tape, stuck on my finger, cut off a finger off of a glove, stuck the glove on my finger, right? Stuck just a little bit of Vaseline at the tip, and then doubled up the glove onto the tip. So it was like a natural penis. And well, before I even did all this part, I just tried to stick my finger in my hand. I'm like, you try to do this, and it's very obvious there's friction. It's not easy to just stick your finger inside of your fist, and you don't have to hold it tight in order to keep it from going in. It's just a loose fist, and it's hard. So I did all this, doubled it up, and then went whoop. Holy cow, that was just too easy. That's oh man, I was pissed. That's how it's supposed to work.
It's a reminder, right? It makes total sense, because rather than having something trying to the mechanics are definitely changed, because instead of stretching to happen because of the friction, you're having in the natural genitals, you just don't have that friction necessary because it can accommodate the movement through the gliding. So basically the epithelia that is in contact with the surface doesn't have to rub against it to enter or be stimulated. It just, it's like almost like, I don't know if this is a good analogy. It's like a conveyor belt going across something rather than just like rubbing it across
Exactly.
it.
Yeah, totally different. And you have to really think about it too. It's like it's like you look at the shape of the glands and how the foreskin gland is natural. This is not a very good representation because it doesn't have the dartos fascia that makes it close up. But you take it and you close it up, and then you think of how a vagina works and how it's got the labia and everything like that. And you push that up against the labia, and then it starts unrolling and spreading out at the same time. It's spreading out the labia, making way for entry.
Yes, rather than just I don't know,
pushing. It's like you're trying to push the labia into the vagina, if unless you've like added lubrication.
More abrasive,
KY
for
jelly,
sure.
whatever.
Yeah, for the recipient and the giver of the action, I would probably guess. Yeah.
So, I mean, women get, they get lubrication, but it's on the inside. It's not on the outside, right? So I mean, unless things open up kind of like a flower, and I get from my gather, sometimes it does, and especially if you have enough foreplay involved and all that, things will maybe open up and make entry easier. But maybe it's too, you get jump into it too fast, and
I can picture. I can tell you've thought a lot about it. I would too.
Yeah, again, 16 years.
Yeah, how can you not think about it when you're kind of reminded about it?
Yeah.
Right. Because you can't just leave the issue away, because it's like engraved on your body. You can't just make if it was an issue that I could just say, I don't want that right now. Okay, I'm not gonna deal with it. Okay, but it's like chained to me.
Exactly. It pisses me off when people say, "Oh, they won't remember." It's like, every time I look down there, I'm reminded. Hello.
Yeah, you don't have to remember the action itself to be upset that it happened, and accept that whenever you knowing that something bad happened to you is upsetting. Even more so when that thing is just tattooed onto your body. You can't do anything about it, right?
Exactly. I mean, you could try restoration, but it doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah, so definitely that it's, and all this really important stuff that you would think would be at the top of their guidelines and reviews about this topic. Nope. Ooh, parents' feelings, that's the most important. Ooh, clean. And even they say that's not a good, they'll say, oh, it's not recommended for everyone. And it's not the best way of hygiene. But then they'll say, oh, well, it's shown to help, a good way to keep the penis clean. What?
How do women get along with their vaginas?
I mean, they're not supposed to clean inside, right? They, it has natural mechanism for that.
Well, unless they get yeast infections and they, was it monostat or whatever,
For some reasons, people can, but it's not a lack of not washing the interior that actually can cause.
Yeah, you don't want to stick soap in there for sure. And same thing for the intact penis. Do you know Sam Carnes?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So he talks about how how he cleans his penis, and it's like you don't use harsh soap. So I mean, otherwise that can cause problems because you don't want.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be in an internal area, and it's because soaps are bases, right? Opposite of acidic things. It's not as basic as bleach, obviously, but you don't want something that's too basic there, because it can be a mild irritant. Just like, well, toothpaste is a mild irritant, but toothpaste is more abrasive than soap. But the point makes sense.
And then there's like scrotal webbing. You know what that is, right?
Yeah,
well, so you're cut tight, right? So when you get an erection, you don't have the tissue to roll down on to
Yeah,
the shaft.
so it pulls it
right?
up a bit.
So that's pulling up on your scrotum down on. So this is the bottom of the underside, and it's pulling the scrotum up with your erection when when your erection pushes your penis outside of your or away from your body. It's bringing that if unless you have a lot of loose skin on your shaft, it's pulling your scrotum up, and my scrotum ends up about halfway onto my shaft. And here's another thing. I have that, but and because it pulls that up, and when I was younger, my scrotum was stretched out. I'm 51 now, so but when I was younger, in my teens and 20s, it would make the scrotum would get so tight it would pull my balls, my testes up to the sides of my shaft, and sometimes like one of those would pop inside my body. The inguinal canal.
Yes, familiar with that.
So that's where they drop out of the body during utero, or maybe even later.
Yes, the gubernaculum pulls each of the testes downwards. Yeah.
So so and that would be so uncomfortable. I'd have to stop masturbating or having sex or whatever until I could like gently push that out, and I had to relax my penis. It's like mind over matter. I think it's really hard to tell your penis to stop being so dang excited. To make it a little smaller so it's not continuing to pull that so tight, and then try to continue on and try to get to
is this what scrotal webbing is, or is that when there's just some pulling upwards of it?
Well, scrotal webbing is a term knowledge that I've heard from medical professionals. I even got into it with Jenny up in Scattered Valley.
Because what I imagined it was that when there is some pulled up, that it causes there to be kind of like a I don't know, between the scrotum, the center of the scrotum, and the center of the shaft, there's like a little bit of a flat amount of skin because it's pulled up a bit.
Yeah, it's pulled up onto the shaft, right?
Yeah.
And for me, my scrotum is hairy, and it's gotten more hairy as I've gotten older, obviously. So having a hairy shaft obviously is no fun. Right? I've seen pictures of hair out on the shaft on the top part of the penis coming from the stomach as well. But then there's also the testes being squeezed and sometimes pushed up into the body. So it doesn't feel good to get kicked in the nuts, right? So having your nuts squeezed by that tight scrotum isn't good either.
Certainly something that is a problem people don't need to be given to them.
Yeah. And I swear my penis would probably be a centimeter longer too if I had the skin, because it's like I keep meaning to do this. I want to take a sock and then take one of those balloons that you twist and make animals out of, or flowers or whatever.
Yeah.
And you stick it into a sock and make it just the right size for the sock. And then so this is the balloon represents your corpus cavernosum, the part that fills up with blood and makes your penis bigger, and eventually it gets harder and stiffer, right? Okay, and then the sock is the skin. Take the sock out, cut off half the sock, put the sock back in, and try to squeeze that balloon inside that sock. The sock might stretch a little bit, but it's going that balloon's going to kink or whatever. So I felt this where like my corpus cavernosum would like get bent inside,
not good.
Would be uncomfortable. So
yeah,
too tight.
I notice you really like to make models of things, and you think very in mechanisms and spatial things. I wonder, I don't know, I wonder if there are ways to make things even more reflective of the body. I mean, because it's hard to imitate a human body with so much going on, with a simple model, but to illustrate a point, yeah, for sure. I mean,
But the thing too is you have to do it in a way that you can put it on YouTube and not mark it as X-rated or whatever.
Yeah. Yes, you don't want to need to go on special websites to prove your point.
Yeah, I have one fellow activist friend that used actual dildos for explaining something, and she got in trouble by YouTube. So I was like, well,
it's truly
this is
educational. Like, I'm not even as a joke. It sounds silly, but like it is. Like, she's saying, like, okay, this is how it works.
Yeah.
Like, make a style of video like Lacey Green. And you know her? I think she's great. She has a good stance on this topic, and she makes good videos for people.
Yeah, I think I've seen her stuff. Lacey Green, yeah, LACIGREN, right?
Yes, and I saw a couple of videos where she is against male genital cutting.
Yeah,
so,
I have seen her stuff. Yeah, she's
really
great.
like her. She's great.
Yeah. Other people I've seen is Dr. Doe on Sexplanations, Caitlin V. And there's another one that I don't like so much. His name is Marty Klein, Klein. I keep trying to get him to revisit this issue. He talked about the issue once, and he shuffled it off, saying, "Oh, it's all in your head" type of attitude was his response. So, anyways, so yeah, and then there's the pelvic floor too. So this skin gets tight and pulls up on the scrotum, but this skin gets tight and pulls on your stomach, right? The skin on your stomach, and I've seen some men where the hairy part at the base of their stomach would get drawn out on top of their penis, right? So maybe a certain amount of their penis would be all hairy from the skin going
there. Hairy fat.
But for me, what it is it'll get tight, and then it'll make my penis curve upward, right? And it kind of sounds funny and jokey.
There are ways that it can curve upwards without that, but I don't know.
I mean, there's some natural curvatures that go on with penises, but then there's also curvatures that happen because things are too tight one way or another.
Yeah, artificial curve. Yeah,
things were cut the wrong way, whatever. But yeah, for me, it's like I could make my penis slap against my stomach. It's I kind of just by making it get kind of like flexing a muscle, right? Yeah. But I'd like to see an intact man try to do that.
I have no idea. Maybe you can make a standard curve for the percent of people who can do both, and you can see if there's a statistical significance there.
Yeah. There's another fun study to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of good questions that I don't know if we can truly know, but we can have a good idea. Maybe I haven't thought about that particular one, but I mean, maybe. Yeah. So, definitely. Which other things did you want to ask me about, or would you like to discuss?
Any chance you had meatal stenosis?
Do you know no. I mean, yes. It's when the opening of the urethra is too small because of the tonic abrasion.
Yeah.
So it can cause kind of spraying or difficulty urinating. I don't personally have any difficulty urinating or anything. I know that altered penises just naturally have a narrower urethra.
Yeah, there's a picture on circumcisionharm.org where you can see two side by side, and they like squeeze them down so you can see the difference in the urethra. And it's very obvious.
Yeah, personally, I don't think I do to the extent that it causes any difficulties, but I think it could fall under the definition of just it's more than it would be if I was intact.
Yeah. I actually had a problem where when I was 7 or 8 years old, and I had a little bit of skin that crossed the center of my meatus, and it made my urine just like fly all over the place. I didn't have a straight stream, and my grandmother took me in and had me looked at, and the doctor was like, "Oh, you got a little growth here. Snip. Okay, fixed." Yeah, it was just scar tissue, so I don't remember feeling anything when he did it, but it did solve the problem. And I that's just it had I can't imagine anything else having caused that.
I don't know exactly what the difference is between, let's say, your cases and potentially someone like me. I don't know if it's more common than I think. I don't think I have any specific problems, but I mean, I'll have to, maybe I'll think about that.
Yeah, there's been studies on, I think Brian Earp even tweeted once about one, about how often meiosis happens to circumcised guys. And it's
More often.
it's not an infrequent thing, unfortunately.
Yep.
So,
Probably,
James
yeah.
Rigdon, he was one of the bloodstained men. He also talked about he had to have things drilled out.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine that this is iatrogenic. Doctor causes this to happen to a child.
Yeah. So then there's other things, but it doesn't sound like you haven't run into erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculation.
Not
or general botches of like curved penis one way or another.
No,
because it was cut
not
too
for,
tight one side or another.
I personally, I don't know for sure for some of them, but most of them I can say with a reasonable level of confidence that I don't have that particular, but I have heard about it and I have references that I can show possible effects, and I've given them. I even said in my complaint things that I didn't have necessarily, but other people do because of this. I want to consider that. If these problems don't need to be caused, then I don't know why you feel the need to do this. Yeah.
All right. Well, do you want to talk about your complaint and where you're looking at taking it?
Sure. So after a few years, both my parents finally came around and they both apologized. They both totally understand now. And I showed them the elephant in the hospital, and they truly saw how much have been preoccupied with this issue. It didn't go away like other things. This just got worse year by year. It got worse. I ruminated about more and more, and I continued discovering how much it affects me, how much I can't deal with that part of my body without being reminded about this. I can't drive by a hospital without thinking about, oh, I know what they're doing to babies in there. I can't hear a baby crying without thinking about this. It's really bad. Yeah. So kind of reached a, it's so a lot of intrusive thoughts about it. Like whenever I walk into hospitals, the first thing I think about, oh, well, this is where they do it to me, or this is where they do it to other babies. Yeah. I bet they're all fine with this, but it's not fine. Yeah. Yeah. They're trying to hold it in, but it's like, it's just really
tell them, to say,
really upsetting.
I just, I walk into hospital stuff with, shirts like this, on, and
good. I wanted to paste up some helpful information packages around the wall.
Yeah. I ask hospitals, hey, would you guys consider, handing this stuff out from your whole baby or whatever, to,
and no, we can't do that. Like, is it bad information? Is what is in that package not true?
Yeah.
At least say why. Or just they'll probably just want return calls and say, oh, we think we're good. We tell parents everything. Oh my, just this behavior is just incredibly, it's to the detriment of their own patients, and they couldn't care less.
Yeah. Or I might carry a little bit more weight being the fact that I'm a parent too. I'm not just a guy that's cut and unhappy. I'm a parent that whose wife was not told any information, wasn't provided any information. So I call them and I tell them I don't want to file a complaint and everything. I talk to them and tell them, and they listen. They hear it out.
Well, I told before I filed a lawsuit against the hospital, I actually talked to them to try and get some info about what do you tell parents, because I knew that they obviously didn't tell my parents what they needed to know.
Yeah.
It's very convenient. Oops, yeah. Tell them about the harms and the gravity of the surgery and the benefits of not doing the surgery. But so I asked them, and I said, "Oh, I'm concerned that you might not be having a balanced consent discussions about this stuff." And I said, and I said, "Yeah, about the documented harms." And she was like, "Harms? What?"
Yeah.
I can tell you about it. I can tell you why I'm concerned about this.
Yeah.
And she kind of was, she wasn't the worst. She was more just caught off guard, and she kind of was, go around a little bit and say, oh, well, it's just parents, sometimes religion. And I said, are you saying that a religion has a place to make a medical intervention on a child's body when that intervention isn't in their best interest? I'll put you in touch with our midwives, or director of the maternity ward, and okay. And I was like, all right. And I was more friendly. I was firm about there's some real concerns here.
Yeah.
And
good for you.
she wasn't she didn't want to kind of go anywhere. She was just kind of, I just want to get back to doing what I do, not thinking about this problem.
Yeah.
But she told me that she had 2 sons, and I wonder if that happened to them. She probably, if it did, she would not want to think that she did something wrong. No way I could have hurt my children. No way, that would never happen. Doctor would never hurt my children if it was not necessary. So then I talked to the next one. She's just telling me, okay, well, I'll put you in touch with some of our obstetricians who do the consent discussions. And they never did, but now I can't because I've started a lawsuit. So I can't really, until probably the discovery or cross-examination, then I can be specific about what do you tell parents?
Yeah.
And so I'll find a list of things that they don't tell parents and say, okay, do you tell them this? Do you tell them that? Like, no. Is that thing not true? Did you deign to go and search for new information, or is your information still from the 70s? And even then, there was stuff from the 70s that was pretty good.
Yeah, I know. It's like crazy. It's
Yeah, ever since 1965, Morgan's rape of the phallus.
It's
right.
The stuff has been developing for decades.
They've had ample time to become aware of it.
Tons of papers
in Canada for a long time. Yet they just keep tacitly over-approving it. Yeah. Not just approving it, they want it to happen. It's disgusting. So I guess I was saying, so both my parents became informed, and it reached a boiling point for me last summer. I got more and more and more and more upset. I never ceased to become more agitated about it. I just would lose sleep. I lost weight. I was just really mad about it. I would wake up at 3 a.m. after having slept an hour and go downstairs and just, my poor mom would have to be there and listen to me. She's like, yes, I know. And I would talk, and they're so stupid because they don't even do this. And it's, no matter how right I am, it is hard to be a parent and have to relive it over and over. But it's like, that's what happens. My mom was a victim in a way too. She just, as a parent, she has some parental responsibility about making sure to not let her kids be hurt. But that's not the person to blame. She did not, as a layperson, have the medical responsibility where someone ought to know better and to have a duty of care to not hurt a patient, right? So the doctor can't just deflect all his blame onto her, but more of that later. So my mom, very understanding, but we've had a lot of less productive conversations over time. My mom's personality and mine don't always go together. My dad's just very much, okay, and I'll tell him, so does that make sense? So I have to kind of get it out of them. So eventually I started getting in touch with DOC. Well, first it was Darcy Narvaez at Psychology Today. She wrote a couple of articles, and she's in Indiana, and she got me in touch with John Geischer, and I first started to have phone conversations with him in August. The day was August 18th with my first one with him. Then August 27th, that's when I got my birth records from the hospital, because he told me, here's what you want to do. Since you turned 20, you're probably going to still have your birth records, but not for much longer.
Yeah.
So ask them for that, find out what, who did it, so then you can do the complaint. And I was like, that's a good idea. So I voluntarily wanted to do the CPSO complaint, because I've been waiting to basically unleash all of this onto it, because that's how it felt. I wasn't going to just stew in this by myself any longer. It was consuming me.
Absolutely.
And it was getting worse over time. So I started writing the CPSO complaint, and it was just, I didn't know where to start. I was like, there's so many things wrong with this. How am I even going to figure out where to, get it all? And so even starting that process was triggering to me. It was just, this
Absolutely.
torrent of thoughts that I've been not containing, but only letting my family see, and getting that onto paper and making it sound academic and formal, right?
And you've done a heck of a job, by the way.
Thanks. I mean, it went through a prototype and drafts and months, and so I threw something together using their CPSOs. They have a digital complaint form at first because it's right down, and I just put some stuff in there, outlined the main problems. Then I got my birth records the next day, August 27th, and that was a trigger for me, for sure, because I found out who the doctor was, and it was a doctor I knew the name of who delivered me in the hospital. I had known his name for about 10 years. Then I found out it was him, and I thought, oh my God, I don't know this guy, but I just felt betrayed. I was like, so he's the one all along. It's like this mysterious person who did this to me, this nameless figure that I felt had a hold on me, all of a sudden has a name. It's just really weird, but it set me off. You know, I can not think. And to see on their description about how my body was responding or bleeding when they were doing that to me, it made me sickened. It was disgusting, right? It's the trauma, and it was just like a stab and a twist of the knife. It was just and they thought this was okay. They did this to me, and it happened. It's like it's just hard to think this happened. It's still shocking to me.
I hear you.
It's so weird. You think, someone would be able to get used to it.
Yeah. I think I'd be more shocked in your pants than I am in mine, because I was born in 70. You're a lot younger, and there was a lot more information out by the time you were born.
Oh yes.
So
the Canadian Pediatric Society said it's not recommended. 4 years later, I was born.
So there's definitely less excuse for them at your age.
Oh yeah.
And the babies that are being born today that are getting cut. Oh my gosh, I can just imagine how pissed off they're going to be in 20 years from now.
The amount of occasion that the powers that be have had to live the truth and to say, you know what, our goal is to seize this, because this happened in Denmark and Germany. They've explicitly said our goal is to stop it from happening. It's like
the Cologne decision in Germany, for example, and the Nordics have been talking about this quite a bit lately, about banning the practice outright.
In my complaint in Appendix J, I cite 4 really good examples of some very progressive, forward-thinking, correct, at least. Well, if maybe they won't say all the way, they're not going to say we're banning for everyone. They have to start with we ban the medical, and I think the religious will soon follow. Because it's like a beehive when you go into the religion. They're even though your reasons are good, they'll make it a thing about it's about religion. Like, no, it's about human rights. Unfortunately, your religion happens to infringe human rights of children. Sometimes
the religious thing doesn't make any sense. To me, it's like, okay, religious freedom belongs to the individual, so you are violating that child's religious freedom. You are putting him into a permanent, lifelong jail of sorts. His body, that is you're making his body
religious branding.
It's like I'm living the rest of my life with in a jail of sorts. I'm in this body and I can't get out. I can't go to a body that
you have one body, and then for them to kind of
so my religious freedom is definitely violated, and it's a lifelong imprisonment.
That's an interesting way of putting it, because it's something that we're tethered to. We can't just leave it in another room. It's not like when someone stains your favorite shirt. It's your one and only body that you have during your time being alive. And for someone to, at the very beginning, sabotage it, it's just unacceptable. I don't care if it's for your religion. I don't care what you think. It's not your body. Your religion doesn't own that baby. Neither do the parents. The parents have authority to raise, feed, educate their children, provide shelter, provide everything that a parent does, right?
They have duties. They have responsibilities.
And making a modification of their child's body at their will is not one of those privileges that they have. At least not in Canada under our law.
You can't tattoo your baby. Why can you cut off part of its body?
So I also hate people. I don't hate the people. I don't like, it's awful, people piercing babies' ears. The thing about that, it's considered de minimis. I don't agree with it. I don't think it should be offered. That's not your body. Why don't you let the kid get their earpiece if they want?
Yeah.
It's really stupid. People just think they're entitled to just encroach on their child's body. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's
Make designer babies, like designer clothes.
Yeah, it's like what? What? Yeah. So, but preputial amputation, that's the term you said you used. That is not de minimis for so many of the reasons that we've been discussing. So there's really no justification, demonstrated medical need. It's not in the best interest of the child. It's not the least invasive nor the most effective way of achieving whatever their belief is to achieve in terms of their health. And if it's not about the child's health, then don't do it. Your child is not a fucking coloring book for you to, I want to do this in it now. Okay?
Yeah.
That one just came to me. I wasn't knowing
if my child wanted to get their hair colored, then but they'd be old enough to consent.
Yeah. If it's of their own volition and it's something that's not going to harm them, it's like, if I had a 12-year-old daughter who really wanted to get her ears pierced, I'd say, you know what? You are the one who initiated it. That's up to you.
And the hair is it's even questionable as whether you consider it a body part because it's dead. It's like the human body waste, right? There's no nerves and there's no blood flowing through it or anything, and it grows back. So same thing like with clipping fingernails. It always, it's like some people will respond like, well, I clip my kid's fingernails and why can't I cut off part of his penis?
Well, one of them is a lifelong impression onto their body. That's a nice way of putting it, right? That limits their future choice, because there's, you take an open future for the child to decide whatever they want to do with their body, and you make that into a closed future. So that's why this thing bothers me so much. I can have whatever friends I want in the future. I can make money or not make money, or have a different job, or have a different school, or have a different degree. I can live in a different house. I can do anything I want, wear different clothes, dye my hair, but I can't be intact. Well, not in the natural sense. I do plan on restoring, but so I have a limited future with respect to this specific thing. And people say, well, why do you care? Well, I mean, I won't go on about that. We've kind of touched those bases, but
a whole lot of reasons.
Limiting my future choice and my body autonomy. Dyeing my hair seafoam green for was going to last 6 months. Maybe it looks funny. I don't know. I don't think the parent would force that onto their child. The hairstylist would say, "What do you want to do?" But when people say, "Oh, clip your fingers," those aren't body mods in the sense of permanently altering. Well, they're genitals. They're almost like personal part of their body in a way, right? It's just what, like, your parents just have jurisdiction over your genitals now, and it's not just like a haircut or a fingernail clippings that only affect you, let's say, up until the time that you are not within your parents' control anymore. No, your parents get to decide something for you when you're a child that stays with you for the rest of your life. That's not, of course, you obviously are very familiar with all those ideas. I'm just, I guess, staying for our discussion. So, so the complaint, so basically I wrote this complaint. I worked on it for many months during my time as a full-time student. I was just, this was my priority, this complaint, and it was slow going. I was really trying to get through it. I was just a mess of notes, and I was like, where do I put this? I had a lot of repetition, and I was thinking, no, I already said that, but I want to say it in this way. I like it saying it in that way. But I can't. I've already said that. So I'm particular about things. I make things very thorough. I was getting supporting letters from different people, and it took a long time to convince my mom to be willing to write one for me, because I kept telling her, Mom, what you can do to help me is to do this. And she said, I don't want to be a part of it. And she got uncomfortable.
You are, though. She has. She made herself part of it a long time ago. All right, 20 some years ago, right?
So she finally did do it, because I told her, Mom, you can say whatever you want. I'm not going to make you say anything. Say your truth. Say whether or not you feel like you were informed. You can. I even made not something to force her or limit her, but I said, here's some prompts. I made questions for her that she could open-ended it, like, how did you think that the harm occurred? Or, well, that would be yes or no. I mean, just how did you feel about the consent process? How did you feel about this? What do you think is going on here?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she
There was a
did.
letter from your counselor that I thought was really good. I loved how she ended it, or she.
Yeah. It was great. And so I finally finished the complaint in January. I'd been editing it, and I was making a lot of adjustments. And so I finally sent it in the mail. And I remember February 9th was the day that I heard back from them for the first time. And I remember just coming home from skating or something. I'm not a good skater. I just skating. I was with my brother, and actually, I mean, it was a weird day, let's say. And I came back. I wasn't sober in a way at the time I came home, and so I was a little just not in my zone. And I saw the email from them that I was expecting. I was like, oh, and I saw the identity of my investigator, and I was like, oh, they've pulled out the big guns here. They got someone who's an investigator of sexual misconduct cases, a medical investigation background in counseling psychology. She had all these things that she did, and I was like, wow, they really picked someone who's very specific for me, because someone who psychological harm is involved in this case. There's a sexual tie to what happened because it involves genitals and sexual difficulties that results from those things that happened. And so someone who's very attuned to basically psychological or, things of that nature, but not just psychological, of course, there's so many physical things about it, but someone who was a good fit, someone who was younger, actually, maybe about 10 years older than me, actually, seemed. So she actually was great. The college. She was amazing. I really appreciated her. She never made me feel like I had to defend it to her. Of course I can prove the harms, but that's later. Good. That's not to her. Yeah. She would.
I don't know if you got to read this book at all, but he talks about his efforts to talk to, medical professionals of sorts, and it didn't go very well. Both times. So it sounds like it went better for you.
Yes, for this, so the investigator doesn't have any real sway. They just basically, they investigate, get some records of what happened. They go to the respondent, whoever doctor it is, or not doctor. There's a lot of different professions that they can do, as surgeons, or there's a college for everything. There's 29, I think, in Ontario, and this was the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario. So we had a couple correspondences where, she even asked if she could record one of our voice memos, and I said, yeah, for sure. And I was able to articulate really well problems to her, and she was very, I think she really understood what was going on. I really had the impression. I don't think she was just being polite. She totally got it. I didn't have to really, make things. I didn't have to spell things out for her. She just knew it. And one time I was asking her, I was telling her, I really wonder what the doctor is going to think when he receives my complaint. Is he going to be totally surprised? Is he going to be in denial and say that he did nothing wrong? Or is he going to say, oh, no, I had a feeling that this could happen because there's some shady things about this specific practice? I said, well, and because I was like, wow, I really wonder what it's going to be. I want to imagine what it will be like. And then she said, yeah, I don't know, maybe the cognitive dissonance. I thought, did that just slip? Did I just slip? I was like, oh my. And I was like, she knows. I didn't press her on that or anything, because I don't want to make her difficult for her. She already does a good job, and she made a good summary of my complaint. She hit all of the points nice and concisely for me, and the committee, the ones who get to decide, the people who are all higher up, they got to be the big ones who get to defend the things that happened that they like unfortunately genital cutting for baby boys, something that they really like at the college. Noticed that. So eventually they deliberated about it on April 8th. There was 4 people in the committee, and they absolutely just shat the bed. They just said, oh, it's common though. Like, oh, false alarm, everyone. It's common. Okay, that makes the harms go away. The doctor, he doesn't have to give me care that serves my best interest as long as it's non-common, because those have to be the same thing, right?
Yeah.
oh, next time I'm upset about it and I have masturbatory difficulties, I'll just reassure myself, oh, don't worry, it's common though. Oh, phew. I was like, are you kidding me? Is that the best I can do? An appeal to popularity? Not only is that lazy and just fallacious, just it's pathetic. What are you doing? You're being paid to do this. And that's the best you have.
Yeah,
but it's common.
I sent a message complaining about one doctor to the medical board in California, and I basically said, this is illegal, and here's the reasons why. And they did, all their response was, "Oh, it's not illegal." Like, well, prove it. Like they didn't that's all they had to say was that's not illegal.
No, it's not. We don't want it to be.
It's, as far as I can tell, it's sexual battery of a minor.
It is.
Yeah.
And of course, the intention isn't to do that, but that doesn't change that that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I would say, just because the law hasn't caught up with you yet is not an excuse to do this. The law already has a framework that proscribes this kind of conduct. And to say, oh, but they didn't notice it, that it's illegal yet. It's like, doing the circumcision in theory isn't illegal, but you can't do circumcision without harming a child unnecessarily, without violating her rights. Those things are illegal. So you can't do the action without doing things that are illegal. So by extension, that thing that you say that you're doing to the kid is illegal, because you cannot do the action without doing something unlawful. So just saying, well, they don't say that circumcision is illegal. It's like, come on, can you think just one layer down, or can you think of, a little bit more about what are the reasons? Do they make sense? And so just saying, well, the law hasn't caught up with us yet. That's no excuse. That's no excuse whatsoever.
What's going to happen when the law does? Someone's going to have to give all these genital mutilators a pardon or something like that. Probably have to come from the queen.
They get to kind of go, oopsie daisies. Now I'll continue doing what I do and not cut babies, but no repercussions for me.
Yeah.
So much for the standard of care for the infants that I harmed. Well, maybe next time.
Yeah, I'm sitting here. I see the analysis section of the CPSO decision.
The response. I was unbelievable. I knew that they would probably blow it off, but I thought that they would at least do it a little bit more tactfully, like put a little bit of effort into it, But what they just want me to go away. That's what they want. They don't want to deal with this. That's inconvenient. They're going to get paid either way. Why on earth would they want to, they don't have any incentive to say, you know what? That's a good point. We're going to reach out to our outreach committee, our quality assurance committee, our education committee, and we're going to really look into this. I think you have some good points. No, they can just say, no, but it's common.
They're just pointing fingers. Well, passing the buck basically to the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons.
It's like, I'm not asking. I said in my appellate brief, I'm not asking you to change your standard of care. The standard of care already it prohibits harming a child, doing medical interventions without being based on the medical needs of the child, and to infringe on their rights. That is against standard of care. Something can be not uncommon and also against standard of care. It's possible. Oftentimes, they will be in line.
It'll be interesting to see if the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons actually has this documented in standard of care somewhere. I mean, how do they define standard of care?
So they define it as what an ordinary, reasonable, cautious, prudent individual would do or exercise in the same situation. And in my complaint, if you go to page 35, I said, a reasonable, ordinary, prudent, cautious doctor would ensure that he was informed himself about what he was doing to a patient. This doctor would ensure that he adequately informed his parents. He would exercise his own authority to decide whether this was the best treatment option for a child patient, and decide whether or not he would volunteer to do it without satisfying those criteria. Those things are expected from him, from the doctrine of informed consent, from professional guidelines. What I'm asking for is not a law. It's totally reasonable. Yeah, if you're going to operate on me, please make it be in my best interest. Don't infringe my rights. Don't harm me. don't let me even be in that position by accepting consent from inadequate, inappropriate storage, and then don't not inform the proxy consent givers who shouldn't even be giving consent for that in the first place. So there was failures on so many levels. There was omissions and actions that were embodying the tort of negligence, right? So that's not the standard of care. If that's the standard of care, I would say that's not even care. If that's the standard of care,
exactly.
I would run away from a doctor if they came at me.
Exactly.
They can do anything they want to me, and it's the standard of care.
How does that care at all?
Yeah. What about that says good treatment? No, yes, it really did something good for me. I should thank them for harming me unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Doesn't add up.
So you sent this to CPSO, or you got a response from CPSO?
Yes. So the next step is I appeal to the Health Professions Appeal and Review Board, who are also not going to want to deal with me. They don't.
Yeah.
They actually totally dismissed a case where a baby was killed by this, preputial amputation causing a blocked urethra, and so the baby died of organ failure shortly after returning home. So they saw no problem with it. They just said, "Oh, these things just happen." Wait, so you mean this was unavoidable, or this couldn't have been foreseen? That this isn't the first case of a baby being killed from this, and it won't be the last one. And
what would they do in, say, a situation like that? I mean, what's the other option for them? Are they going to bar the doctor because the doctor made one mistake?
Hold accountable, issue a formal caution at the least. I don't know if suspension of license would be warranted, but from the sound of the complaint, it seems like this was really an incompetent individual. And also, the board is able to make any actions that it deems necessary. It can make a formal notice to the college saying, okay, you should be disciplining your members who do this or fail to do this, or you should advise or put this in your guidelines.
Yeah.
They can do a lot of stuff, and they don't. Yeah. They don't want to. And then they'll even have the audacity to say,
why not?
Well, they'll say infant circumcision isn't in our jurisdiction. What do you mean? You're the Health Professions Appeals and Review Board. Your job is to ensure that people.
This is the funnier, and this is where I kind of agree and disagree. So to me, circumcision, even the word, is not a medical thing. It's a ritual. It's a ritual. Just because it's done in a medical facility by a medical professional does not make it medical. There has to be a medical indication for it to become medical. So at the most, it's plastic surgery, right? So when it comes to, like, for instance, you got the statute of limitations of the United States. I'm not sure what that is in Canada, but
yes, 2 years for Ontario.
Oh, so you guys have the same thing that we do. I'm sorry, man. So that makes it very difficult, especially, that's why you have to get it done.
I'm on the edge of the statute period. I had 41. I was actually 41.
Well, you already filed your complaint, though, right?
Oh, yeah, but I was 41 days late, and they're really trying to hold that against me, saying, "Oh, he wasn't suffering enough before."
Well, there's also this thing called equitable tolling.
Yes, I am aware of that, and I have many reasons for why I should be able to equitably toll it. Plus, in the law, in the Limitations Act of 2002, it says cases involving assault do not have a limitations period. I was like,
exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Sounds great.
Yeah, you could sue the Boy Scouts of America. You could sue the Catholic Church for touching children's genitals anytime, because there's no statute of limitations on that. But yeah, you can cut parts of genitals off because it's done in a medical facility.
Yeah, I agree. It's inconsistent.
Yeah,
I think the reasoning is both are incredibly, absolutely reprehensible. Of course, right? The intention with the child molesters is much different. The doctor, totally negligent, wrongdoing, medical malpractice. It's not even medical, kind of. It's just they're doing something under the guise of medical, right? Yeah. The intention doesn't change that it's wrong. It doesn't change that. It's definitely I can't really stratify and say, oh, this is more wrong or that's more wrong, because they're not, so I would say that it's much harder to justify, well, the way the system seems to be working is that in cases of intentional, well, those things are criminal. This is civil. With criminal, you need to prove malicious intent. Like this was bad faith. The doctor they knew what they were doing and they didn't care. Criminal negligence. They were gonna hurt, and that happens sometimes, I'm pretty sure. But most of the cases, it seems to fall into this area of, okay, wrong. It was assault, unintentional assault, but still assault.
Yeah.
It's tainted, right? If someone accidentally, people have fallen from places by goofing around and they've hit people falling down, and that's considered assault. Yeah, that guy didn't mean to fall off onto somebody, but it's still assault. Yeah. It feels weird calling that, but that's what it technically is, and you can get punished for assault. So if a doctor doesn't mean to assault a baby, it doesn't mean he didn't assault the baby. It just means he did. At least it wasn't malevolent, but it doesn't change the harm that was done. So those cases that you brought up, criminal, this falls into the realm of civil. Whether or not my opinion on it, that just seems to be why, but I get it. Why do some people get to touch children's genitals inappropriately, and others can do it inappropriately, but in a different way for different reasons or invented reasons or whatever. But yeah, I get what you mean. I don't know if that makes sense. I
agree.
I'm learning a lot about the legal system, and I'm also losing a lot of faith in it.
Yeah.
At the same time, I know it does protect people oftentimes, but mostly access to justice is such a huge problem. You can get great representation if you have a lot of this, but good luck otherwise. Yeah. Really hard.
The case. I should look at the website again. This family that's suing for fraud. So fraud has a different.
The Levine family.
Yeah, the Levine family. Thank you. I guess they have some money, but they're suing for fraud, and so they don't have to deal with the same thing about the statute of limitations there. So, so I mean, you can file multiple charges when you think about it. It's like, like what I would do at the very beginning is I would challenge it being a medical practice in the first place, and I would say that the statute of limitations doesn't apply because it's not a medical practice.
Yeah, and if something is a medical, it can still be, like, the things that make medical interventions not assault is that they have medical justification, and then there is legally operative consent, right? So if you cut someone open, it's not assault. Given that, okay, you need this treatment is something that's needed, serves their interest, and they have consented, or their parent has provided informed consent for something that actually was needed, like a child's heart surgery that is needed, right?
Yeah,
that's the case where there's an existing pathology that necessitates a surgery.
Yep.
When that's not true, you don't have medical need, no medical justification, and you don't have consent, neither from the child, who can be given consent if you wait. There's no reason not to wait. Oh, but what if they want it to be done later? Okay, most people don't. Why don't you give them the choice? Well, what if they don't want their tooth pulled out later? We better do it for them now. Yeah. What? Sorry, that was a side. No. And so inappropriate consent from the wrong place, uninformed, right? So that means that what's happening is assault. Margaret Somerville says, she has some good reasoning, and her book, the Circumcision, is about the ethics of it. It's from a book from 2000, the ethical canary, something like that. She outlines it very eloquently. I cite it in my complaint. You might see it in section 4, and it's about the ethics about this. And I put an inlaid text box, or maybe just in a paragraph. So if you Control F, Somerville.
Margaret Somerville, the ethical canary.
You'll see. She shows why this falls under the definition of assault. Whether or not it's intentional, it doesn't change it.
So she specifically talks about this topic?
Yes, she does.
Wow.
She's actually a professor who used to teach at my school. She recently moved back. Yeah, I missed her just by 4 years. She was in the bioethical department. She was the founder of the Center of Bioethics, Medical Law and Bioethics or something.
Okay, it's only like $4. Or, no, I'm sorry, that's a delivery cost, $31. Or you can buy it for $7.70. Anyways,
I've seen some nice gems from there. In her book, she even says it's likely that in the near future we will be seeing a young man suing a doctor for doing this to him as an infant. I was like, that's me.
That's already been. Yeah, you're not the only one though. It's already been done.
Right? I'm not the prophecy. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're the only one that I know of in Canada so far, but yeah, there's been cases in the U.S., particularly by like David Llewellyn as a lawyer.
It was William Stowell in 2006, I think.
Yeah, William Stowell.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for my case specifically, it doesn't look good. My case is very good. It has merit. I have right on my side, but it looks bleak for me. Not for a few reasons. If you'd like me to get into it, I issued my statement of claim in March. Then, because I didn't get legal representation, I represent myself, and I think I can do a good job of it, even though I'm not, a professional. I just have communication abilities and writing skills and perseverance and determination, and I can do a lot with that, hopefully. So I figured out how to write it myself. And since my dad is an attorney, he but not for this field of law, he still helped me with some stuff. Just, okay, you might want to think about this or that, and I wrote it myself because I just thought, I can't wait anymore. I can't wait longer because this statute of limitations, which since COVID, there was a 6-month pause of limitations period. So I had 20 years plus 6 months. So January 23rd was the day that my limitations period ran out. And I didn't notice the date expired. I assumed that it expired on my 20th birthday. And then shortly after it actually ran out, then I found out. I was like, oh, by the way, there's 6 months. I was like, why didn't you tell me this? I would have made sure. Because I thought, oh, okay, 6 months, 7 months won't make a difference. But when we're talking about days, it's like this ticking clock where it's like every single day they're going to hold it against me. They're going to punish me for not issuing this today. It was a lot of stress because I thought it's like this closed door that's closing really fast. It's like I get to live for the rest of my life with what happened to me. But oops, you missed the due date. Sorry. Tough luck. Try not getting mutilated next time. Right?
Yeah.
So I did.
I want more guys like you at age 15, 16 years old learning about this so they have some time to put together a case and do all the work that you've done.
It was so unreasonable to expect me to have been able to do this when I was 18. Like, I couldn't even talk to my parents about it when I was 18. I had no resources, no support, no funds.
And
what do you think I'm going to do?
There's not good lawyers out there ready to jump at
for no money, on a contingency basis, right? When they don't think there's a chance I'm going to win. So also, I turned 18 in July. I go off to university, moving. I had a lot of stuff going on. So a couple family crises between that. During my summers, I was doing exams related to some things, part-time jobs. Not in the position to just say, you know what, stopping it all. I'm going to do this lawsuit. Because over time, as I said, the mounting stress and agitation, increasing discovery of the harms is what really made it reach a boiling point for me. That's when I had occasion to know, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. It makes sense for me to seek legal remedy because I don't know what options are open to me. I just became an adult. To expect me to have done this is absolutely unrealistic. And to hold it against me is unfair and unjust. It's honestly impressive that I was able to get as far as I have in such a small amount of time.
Your complaint is full of references to case laws. I'm amazed. And now that you told me that your dad is a lawyer, it's like,
well, he's not ready for me. It was Canley searches. I had someone who gave me some tips about how to basically find past cases. So Canadian Legal Information Institute, Canley. You can look up keywords. You can look up circumcision, psychological harm. Look it up and put the ands and the commas and the ors and to make it really specific. And you can find, ooh, I like that. I'm going to take that little tidbit out of this one and I'm going to put it into my complaint because it makes sense. And there were some good ones. And this guy who is a lawyer who also wasn't able to represent me but cares about this issue, basically kind of gave me some legal notes about it, which I really made good use of. And I said, this is really helpful. So I cited cases, learned how to do it.
John Geishiger is a lawyer, or was a lawyer.
It wasn't him. It was someone else. but I won't say any names for the purposes of right now. So that's how I kind of got introduced to how do you do this? How do you do this or that? Or
Yeah.
so
I wonder if you could like go to a law school and see if you find someone that's not, bar certified yet, and just see if if they can look at
they
it.
would represent me. I don't know if they can, because by definition they're not licensed to represent people.
Well, they don't necessarily have to represent you, but they might, pass you some notes or something.
Ooh, but then so they would be very hesitant to do that because they're always afraid of liability, which I understand. Because as soon as they help someone and there's an impression that they're being retained, but they're not, it's like, oh, well, they can have people think, well, he told me to do this, and that's why I left the lawsuit. Look, it's all his fault. They got to be careful. People are like that.
I understand.
You tell someone, ooh, you might want to try thinking about this, and then they go do it, they lose their case, and then they'll say, oh, it's your fault. Oh, look, you're terrible. Right? So they give you these fancy letters of non-retention saying, oh, you're retained, an official notice, signed here. It's like very, very formal. We get it, not retained. Yes.
Here, I'm going to throw a plane at you. Go ahead and catch it.
I got a lot of those non-retention letters. They were, oh, you're not able to assist with your case. Oh, I was like, okay, all right, thanks. Yeah. So I had a wild goose chase for legal representation in the month of February. Those days were ticking by, and I was just freaking out. I have to find it right now, and I said I couldn't wait any longer. I'm gonna represent myself. This isn't gonna stop me. You're not gonna have me. Oops, you were 42 days, not 41 days. Fuck you. You can't sue. You lose your right to sue. You haven't given me occasion to be able to seek justice, and now you're expecting me to have already done this day I turned 18.
Yeah, and again, that's why I would try to get them to prove that it's a medical procedure in the first place. That is, that falls underneath the statute of limitations.
I have other good reasons. My CPSO complaint can be seen as constructive notice for them. Also, equitably tolling based off of they can even they're lenient with COVID. That they pause at 6 months. Why can they pause it for 8 months? And my dad suspects that they're going to kind of be forced to just let people just a little bit longer for a lot of people because they don't have access. Some people don't have access to the internet or computers or their own printer and stuff, right? And since they can't go anywhere, right? They're not going to have the means to do what they need to do. So things are getting delayed more. So my dad suspects they're going to have to be a little bit more lenient about this 182-day pause, make it a little bit longer. Also, since I was having some psychological outcomes from what happened to me, if you know what I mean, I was not in a good position to be.
I think there was even a reference I was reading about it. It's like if you end up in a coma, for example, for a year, well, that's definitely a good reason for tolling, giving you an extra year, right? And you have letters from your counselor or whatever, and even a school. I think you had a letter.
Oh, so the psychiatrist that I saw from the school's wellness hub, she's a official psychiatrist and everything, but that's how I got her, because psychiatrists are really hard to get to see. They are, they are rarer than toilet paper last March.
I totally know, because my wife has to see a psychiatrist on a regular basis.
Yeah, they're hard to get. So I was very fortunate that I was able to see one through the school by even I could tell that having a lot of anxiety wasn't enough. I had to tell them about the other stuff I was going through. And then they were saying, you know what? Well, I remember what the person was saying, okay, you know what, we want to get the ball rolling on that. And so she got me to see a doctor September 25th. And then October 8th was my first appointment with a psychiatrist. And it went better than I expected. I had a bad experience with my general practitioner, not the one who harmed me, just one who I was under the care of for around 10 years when my previous one retired, not him either. So that's all a different story, but I do have good reasons for being able to toll. How can I be expected to be initiating the lawsuit when I'm basically going through a crisis over the summer, when I'm not sleeping properly, not eating properly, agitated, having, being overcome by constant incessant rumination. Right. On top of trying to hold it together for a full-time job in a lab I was working on, and I had to do a virtual project. It was a chemistry thing that I was molecules on the computer, fitting them into pockets. So I was doing work, and I was doing summer course, and I had all this going on. So and then I can always tell them, well, also, yeah, there was this whole virus thing.
Yeah.
Things
Yeah.
weren't as easy to access last
For
summer. So to hold it against me and say, oh, you were just this many days late. It's like,
Yeah.
we're not talking about a school project, okay? We're talking about me being harmed for my life.
Yeah.
Hopefully I won't have to live with it to this extent forever, but I'm trying to seek remedy for it and to bar me from that because, oops, you missed the mark. Sorry, tough luck. That's limitations periods are not for that. Limitations periods are something that allows people to be free from liability after a time where it should have reasonably been resolved, right? Because people do need to move on from their lives, and we don't want people to be scared that, oh, someone's going to sue me for accidentally stepping on their foot in 1952, right?
Yeah.
I get it. And so when something continues to affect me the most now, and it will continue to affect me, this isn't over. This isn't done. I haven't had occasion to resolve it.
Yeah.
So I'm not talking about someone bumped into my car in the 90s. I'm talking about something now
sure.
that affects me now.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's what limitation periods are for stuff that really ought to have been resolved sooner. And it used to be 6 years in Canada until recently.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, my dad said, well, it used to be 6 years, and they've changed it. And they made it.
Yeah.
They had ones at a time it was 1 year, and then they noticed that there was a certain type of car accident where people wouldn't notice their chronic pain until more than a year, between a year and 2 years, and they had to extend it more because how can you expect people to have sued about the chronic pain that they don't start experiencing until more than a year after the accident, right?
I imagine, I just have this idea that it would be cool if someone were able to take a case to a court somewhere, whether it be federal court or a state court, and just say, okay, judge, let's define what is covered underneath the statute of limitations. Is it all procedures performed by medical professionals, or is it only medical procedures? And if it's only medical procedures, and then as a second step, is circumcision a medical procedure? Yes or no? And so the judge would just have to, on this, yes or no, on this, yes or no.
Non-therapeutic circumcision, because that would be a really hard one to win. It would to hit the point home, really, to say non-therapeutic.
Yeah, exactly. You could better define it.
Something that doesn't have justification to do.
And also there, I would try to get them to change the wording. I even avoid using the wording when I'm writing letters to hospitals or politicians or whatever, and say preputial amputations.
Yeah, and they might say,
they're like, what? And they're like, yeah, they're removing the prepuce. Oh, and that's circumcision. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh,
it just gets their gears running.
Because it's like, that doesn't sound good. Oh, I like the euphemism for it. Good. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point you brought up. Not everything done in a hospital by a doctor is, a medical thing. Like, a doctor can give you a lip injection and say, well, it's done by a doctor who's a certified doctor, and it was in a hospital. And even if the doctor was certified cosmetic surgeon, or I don't know what things they call MD for each thing,
board certified, or
they can be certified. But if you do it on someone who there's no adequate consent for, let's say a child, like let's say there's a 9-year-old child, and the mom is like, yeah, I want you to do her lips. It looks better. It's superstitious for us. It's for our religion.
Yeah.
And then the doctor says, no, okay, no, yeah, just sign here. Is the doctor then free from any accountability? Because look, I'm a doctor, it's in a hospital, and her mom signed. Done. It's like, okay, as soon as you have a signed paper, you're free from your duty of care. You got the green light to do whatever you want to that kid. It's insane.
Yeah, I kind of compare it to also, like, I've heard of cases where OBs have raped women that were like under, anesthesia.
Oh my God.
It's like, okay.
That's an entire can of worms. I definitely don't think you'd have a hard time arguing that that's not medical treatment at all. Of course not, right? That's not
cutting
something
out
that's
the
hard.
male prep use is not medical treatment either.
I agree with that. I definitely, those are both cases of inappropriate conduct.
Yeah.
I stand by that. For me personally, I would shy away from saying this is an example of a doctor doing something to someone, and that's not even hard to demonstrate why. But I mean, that's not even like a proposed treatment. Circumcision can be a proposed treatment, but not medically necessitated.
It's not a treatment. Circumcision, a preputial amputation, is not a treatment.
There was no pathology necessitating any treatment. Well, did you know that this is really messed up, but I learned from one of my courses in medical history, they were talking about, they used to treat hysteria in women in like the 1910s.
Hysterectomies. Another euphemism.
By basically by trying to quench their womanly desires with activity, right? That was a thing over 100 years ago. But is that medical treatment? I hope not. Doesn't make sense.
Well, they did female circumcisions all the way up until the 90s.
In Appendix C of the Golden Book, there was a case where a woman had been mutilated by a doctor who initialed his name inside of her. Did you remember that?
My gosh, no, I don't. I haven't heard that one.
It was in Appendix C of the Golden Book. My dad was my dad was mad about it. He was just like, they should be shot. And I was like, gosh, you tell him, yeah. My dad is very passionate about things. He's like, oh, you ought to be. when I tell him about the horrors of preputial amputation of infants, my dad always says, oh, they should be put up against the wall and shot. I'm like, oh,
you know what that is? You got him.
Yeah, it's well, oh my god, my dad will say a lot of stuff. I'm glad he cares. He cares about the well-being of, like me, how I've been harmed and others who continue to be harmed. And in my dad's letter, he says, this is a violation of the child's rights, and it's an inexcusable one.
Yeah.
And it's like, hit the nail on the head.
Good for him. Yeah, that's good that you wrote that letter for you. So, you started this trying to do some fundraising.
Yes,
for the next step, because there's a risk.
Because of the cross claim, mostly. There would be risk anyways. I could still be liable for indemnification costs myself, but I don't have as many assets at risk being a 20-year-old student. Yeah. But I would be basically enslaved for the next 15 years and not able to have anything under my name if they end up making me pay my mutilator, which would be really twisted. Can't think of a more perverse outcome. Oh, wait. Yeah, how about effing my parents by making them pay all of the legal costs of the people who harmed me? They were basically tricked. My parents were like they just, my parents walk into the hospital my parents intended to allow it to happen to me, but that was because they were delusioned about it. They didn't know. They didn't have occasion to learn about it. And the doctor went along with that and said, okay, sign here. I'll do it now to your child. Whether or not this is the best treatment for him, or whether or not treatment is needed, right? So it doesn't change anything. A parental request does not change the doctor's fiduciary duty to the patient. Does not absolve them of the responsibility to do no harm.
Yeah.
So what I was saying is that on June 12th, we received a third-party cross claim against the mother. I know it's probably the doctor's legal team. I don't think the doctor specifically he's not the one behind. It's kind of the lawyer and the insurance company or whoever who is representing them, because it makes sense for them to do this. Yeah. They want ways to try and silence me. They don't want this. They want anything they can do to try and deflect blame onto the parent, right? Because they're grasping at straws. They're thinking, oh yeah, this doesn't make sense. Oh, it's the mom's fault. She signed. Look, she signed on that paper. Oh, look at her. Yeah. She's bad. She's the one. Let's destroy their family.
Yeah, there's always this finger pointing going on.
Let's make them have to mortgage their house because we mutilated her son. What? It's crazy, because even their complaint, they're saying, oh yeah, she was informed. We informed her. And then they're saying, oh, and if she wasn't informed, then she should have informed herself. I was like, that's not what the doctrine of informed consent says. So the doctor must inform the parent of the nature and gravity of the surgery or proposed treatment, the benefits and the risks, which include harms, material
Mhm.
harms, which
Yeah.
exist,
Exactly.
and the alternative of non-intervention, which would be, what would be good about leaving me intact? I would have loved them to discuss that. I feel my parents, oh, look, you're going to have this anatomical worth, the tissue that is highly innervated, protective, it's sensory and sexual purposes. It facilitates comfortable sex. Oh, and the people value the state of being intact. Oh, yeah.
But that doctor probably doesn't know all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. And it
Or
doesn't
definitely
change his
didn't back then.
obligation to know all that stuff.
Yeah.
But he didn't say those things.
Yeah.
The doctor of informed consent doesn't say, inform of the parents all the material risk. Unless you don't know them yourself, then you can just not. No, it says a material risk is by definition something that the patient or consent giver would have wanted to know at the time. And these things, my parents can vouch for us that they wanted to know this stuff. They have said that letting this happen to me was one of their biggest regrets. If they could go and change something back in time, it would be this having happened to me.
Yeah.
So to say that they were informed is absolutely not true. There was actually no documentation about the discussion that allegedly happened. There was no signatory witness or anything. It just says, oh, the hospital says amputation of the foreskin. No, removal of foreskin. They don't even say amputation.
You think about the things that were made to go through to go get a third party to sign with you, but when it comes to something like this in hospitals, any signature will do. Just a quick little X will be fine.
Yeah, basically, it's just get this over with. I want to just go do it and do it to the next kid. So the form itself, just removal of foreskin, then it says, oh, you're agreeing that the doctor discussed all these things. And my parents thought, or if they think there's a discussion, the doctor will say, oh, yeah, okay. The doctor may say, oh, yeah, well, it's not that recommended, but there's benefits. Oh, it's hygiene. Yeah. Say more about that. Okay, now sign, and I'll go do it. It's just this is their machine. It runs. And this is how they operate. They're not going to stop and say, wait, I don't think you're actually informed. I want to really make sure that you know what you're agreeing to. And then on top of that, I don't think that it's appropriate for me to get consent from you as the parents. And on top of that, even if they do give it consent, to say, actually, this is not something that's in the interest of the patient here. So I'm not going to do that. Go find someone else. This is why I won't do it. Nope, you didn't do any of those things. So they're basically saying, well, my mom should have informed herself. How come my mom didn't know that information even existed? If she knew that there was a bunch of material harm that she didn't know about, she would have went and found that, right?
Yeah.
But to just say, oh, they should have informed themselves. Your job is to inform them. They trusted you to inform them. That means any doctor can just not inform patients and then say, well, they should have informed themselves.
Yeah.
How?
Here, can we cut your kid's toes off? Oh, what's the benefits and risks?
Imagine if the actual doctor said, yeah, you must inform the patients about X, Y, and Z. Or you just don't have to, and you can tell them they should inform themselves.
Yeah, it's just so backwards. It shouldn't even be a question in hospitals.
I know. So they make this furious cross-examination against my mom, and it makes sense. That's what they do. Their job is to try and defend the doctor in the hospital as much as possible. So, I know how we can stir the pot. Let's try and pit him against his parents and threaten him into silence. And it almost works. It's really, really frightening because my dad says, do you really want to fuck your parents with this lawsuit? It's awful to hear that. I don't want my parents to be stressed out. I don't want us to be risk of having.
I just don't understand. Maybe it's Canadian law is different than U.S., but I just don't understand how they could go after your parents.
So what they're doing
when
is
you're the one that's filing the complaint, not them.
Oh yeah. So with the lawsuit, and they receive it, and they say, oh, they think that the parents are at fault because they signed it. Oh, look, they signed something that wasn't in their son's best interest. Because they believed it was, and we didn't tell them why it wasn't. But don't worry about that. The parents signed it. Now let's go after them. So I talked to a doctor about it too, who was a cousin of mine. He said, what? I can't imagine them winning that costing. But at the same time, my dad keeps saying, this is how things work. I agree with you that this doesn't make sense, but this is not how they're going to see it. My dad just is adamant that the court is not going to see it. And I said, then that's incorrect. That's not what the law says. You can't go and blame my lay parents for a medical liability that they were tricked into allowing.
Yeah, there's got to be a legal recourse, a legal approach somehow, but it's just a matter of figuring out what the legal approach is to make something happen with this, so they stopped doing this.
Yeah, I've made a notice of constitutional question which exonerates my parents. Mostly, like, it says that my parents were empowered to give consent, but they didn't know, and that limit was not imposed on them by the doctor, who should exercise the limits of proxy consent.
Yeah, he did. You wrote that really well. Yeah, I read that part.
Yeah. So that doesn't change no matter what a parent requests or signs. Your duty to the patient doesn't disappear once you have a signature. Yeah. It absolutely does not, because they must give care based on the individuality of the patient, and it must be based on the patient's individual medical needs, not someone else's preferences.
Yeah,
as that in the professional guidelines, and to say, well, no, look, they signed papers. That doesn't change that. Yeah, okay. They could have signed 10 papers. They could have gone on their knees and begged you to do it to me, and it wouldn't change it. You still don't have the authority to impose this on my body and to go along with it voluntarily, harm a patient with an unnecessary surgery or not surgery, just preputial amputation, and then say, look, it's the parent's fault, and parade around that paper with a signature, because it's like they're more concerned about getting a signature from a parent than they're actually concerned about making sure quality care is being given, or even just care at all.
Yeah. Was it
priorities and stuff?
Was it your mother that signed, or your dad, or both?
My mom. So my dad ultimately kind of decided, because he was the dad, and he said, oh yeah, I don't know, I just sure I have it happen to me, and this is what we do. And my mom was like, my mom just deferred to my dad, said, well, you have penis, so you make the choice. And then they, she just signed it. It was probably just haphazard. Just, yeah, I'll do this to his older brother. This is what we do.
Yeah.
Very, very unfortunate. And as a parent, yeah, it's like, how could you? It's a bit of a betrayal, but also, they were not the ones to blame. This was just, they were the victim of the system. They were kind of duped. In my case, the doctor didn't try to sell it to them at all. My mom just asked about it, and the doctor said, "Oh yeah, sure, okay." Right. So all those problems still are very apparent. Yeah, they're very obvious problems. So this claim against my mom it doesn't make sense, but at the same time, there's an enormous risk with it, though, because there's a very big possibility that the judge will say, "Oh, makes sense to me. Yeah, have fun in crippling debt now." Right. And my dad says that's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I have to find a way of protecting myself from that. If I proceed past the mediation, I want to. If it was just my money, limited amount of money for someone my age on the line, I would say, you know what, I'll go head on. But when it's my mom and dad who are desperate to not allow me to do this, they don't want us to lose our house. We've been fortunate in many ways financially, but we don't want that to be turned upside down, because legal fees add up really quickly. And we'd be paying the indemnity costs for the defendant, the hospital, and the doctor, who each have big shot lawyers from Toronto or London, Ontario, that are probably being paid hourly hundreds of dollars. Yeah. So the more time that they put in this case, plus the retainer fees and this and that, it can add up into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It can add up really quickly. And that's really scary because we don't have that kind of money to just dish out for people who are not entitled to it. So it's really scary. My mom keeps telling me, "You're suing me," and I keep telling her, "No, I'm not," because they try to make it in the claim, so that the cross claim, that if any harm is to be found and any wrongdoing, that they blame it on my mother for agreeing to it. And in fact, there isn't any harm, well, then my mom has to pay them for the legal costs. So either way, they want my mom to be just, punished.
Yeah.
Either. So I keep telling my mom, no, just because they made the cross claim doesn't mean that it's true. That's not set in stone. I will demonstrate why that doesn't make sense. My mom keeps saying, you can say that, but they're going to not see it that way. They're going to sue, you're suing me, you're suing me. I'm like, Mom, I'm not suing you. I'm doing everything I could possibly do to exonerate any kind of misplaced responsibility onto you, who were also a victim of this, not physically, but psychologically.
Absolutely.
It's stress. It's put a rift between my mom for many years. As I said, I had a lot of discomfort around my parents when I was a teenager because of this, and it put some distance between us. And that's on top of some of our fights about this. Right. So there is a lot going on here, and I can't let their stupid cross claim silence me to forfeit my chance to protect other people, to confront the legal system with this problem.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to sit around and wait 10 more years for someone to be silenced for the same reason as me.
Yeah.
So if it's not going to happen now, is it going to happen? Or are we going to have to wait 100 years until it just slowly fizzles out?
Or some billionaire comes along and decides to sue the crap.
Yeah.
You know, so with some serious
you don't have
money.
to worry about indemnity costs.
Yeah.
For sure. So it's just so unjust. So it's like, you better not dare speak out, or we're going to punish you with financial ruin for being harmed and being tricked into allowing your son to be harmed.
Yeah.
So it's insane, and it's very, very stressful. I've had some nasty phone calls with my mom lately, where I keep telling her, I can't withdraw from this case right now. I'm going to get to the mediation stage, because that's where I can present my case and show them what I'm made of. Because the mediation stage is mandatory, and it will provide some value. I can at least negotiate with them. I can see what they're going to do. Are they willing to settle? But I will not sign a non-disclosure agreement. I will not do that, so they can make me shut up and keep doing this to babies. You're not going to pay me to keep quiet. Not on my watch.
Yeah.
Nice try. You can't just keep throwing money at this problem and hurting babies. Yeah, I know. I couldn't live with myself. I couldn't I got some monetary compensation for this thing that's terrible that happened to me, and it keeps happening to other people, and then they don't, I keep just, and then I'm basically gagged with a stupid NDA. I talked to someone on Reddit who had that experience from Ottawa, and I don't know his identity. I don't know how much. He wouldn't tell me, but he said he got a substantial chunk of change from a hospital to make him shut up about it.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. I think even William Stoll had to agree to certain, restrictions, and talking about his case and all that too. But it makes me think of like the lawsuit that happened against the cigarette companies, right? And that was like a huge undertaking, I guess, right? And of course they're gonna say, well, you guys are the ones that stuck the cigarettes in your mouth and lit them off on fire. But the problem with that lawsuit compared to this lawsuit is that lawsuit was filed against a handful of companies, right? Well, if we were to try to do a lawsuit that involved all of us men that complain about this practice, who would we sue? The only option we already have is to sue the individual doctors and hospitals.
Or you can actually you can sue the state or the country itself for failing to protect.
Yeah, and that's what I try to do. First of all, I filed a criminal complaint, which obviously never really did much of anything. I got a case number and all that, but I never heard anything from it. And then I filed a tort claim against the U.S. Navy, because that's where I was born, in a naval hospital. And of course, they used a 2-year statute of limitations thing on me, so I took it to federal court, and tried to claim a lot of the things I've been talking about. It's like, well, this isn't, this shouldn't fall underneath that, and even if it does, statute of limitations, when
you don't discover it until a certain time, that's when the clock starts ticking. It's 2 years after you discover the injury.
Yep. And so I put the DA through a lot of work, and they put together one heck of a retort on it, and they requested letting the case go or whatever, and the judge just did. The judge didn't really hear me out, I guess. But $500 some of my own money to try to make a change. At the very least, I can say that I tried, and I know that lots of eyes saw this and see that there are men like me complaining about what's been done to them. So I keep hoping that more will do similar things, because if it happens more and more and more, then eventually they're going to say, hey, AAP, change your freaking policy, or hey, medical boards, don't allow this anymore.
It under the rug when there's a groundswell of people. And I hate that a judge can just make a perverse judgment and they don't have to justify it. They can just say, I don't like that. Okay, no.
Yeah.
You don't even have to make any good reasons for you to be able to appeal it. Or maybe if you had the opportunity to appeal it, then you would be costing hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, which is, you only get justice if you are very rich. is the moral of the story.
Yeah, I think I've had to go to Supreme Court next or something like that in Washington D.C. or something like that.
What about an appellate court? I think that's the next step.
Well, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Because then you go through the lower court circuits, and then you finally, the Supreme Court doesn't have to even decide. They will likely even say, no, I don't really want to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I the last thing I did was I messaged the Inspector General's office and said, hey, you guys, your job is to keep the federal government from wasting money. So here's an area where they're wasting money. So.
Well, that's how to catch attention. Oh, wasting money. Okay. Now,
yeah.
That would be funny if that's how you got it to stop. No one cares about the.
Well, I mean, at the very least, it would stop it in federally funded hospitals, right? Okay. On like on military bases and stuff like that.
Or they would just make the people pay for it, which would.
Yeah, at the very least, yeah.
But at least it would disincentivize some people.
Mm-hmm.
But like in my province, they stopped covering in 1994, I think.
Oh, up in Canada, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
94.
Yes,
that's when they stopped. Okay, I knew that they stopped funding it at the social healthcare level. I'm really curious why Canada. From my understanding, the NHS in Europe or in the UK, whatever, stopped it in like the 50s. And why did Canada take so long?
Canada has no. Basically, Canada's kind of spineless when it comes to the US. It just follows the leader. It's really pathetic. They just. Okay, big brother USA, you're the ones who do it. We'll do it. We'll follow you.
Yeah.
And
this might be one of those cases where we go the other way around, and US finally opens their eyes. It's like everyone else is stopping this. Maybe we should get
get
our butts in line.
I think it radiated out of Battle Creek, Michigan, because that's when the Victorian practice of we don't want those kids masturbating. They better do things to them to try and harm them enough so that they don't do it.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Messed up people, but. So they kind of spread out from there and never caught on the West Coast. And
it's funny, even to this day, you look at the maps that show the rates of this practice.
Heat maps, and it's like
it radiates out from Michigan.
Oh yes, it's rampant there. It's like they have a fucking bee in their bonnet for cutting BB boys there. It's really weird and it's disturbing.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, since my home city is in proximity to the Midwest. It's Canadian, yet you know how Canada dips down a little bit into the peninsula near the Great Lakes and stuff. So we're kind of surrounded by parts of the States, parts of the Midwest. So I don't know if there's influence from there. I think there is a lot. And it's really an Anglophone phenomenon. It never really caught on for French-speaking places. So where I am in Quebec right now, it's super rare, maybe 10% or under that. And the West Coast, very rare. Prince Edward Island actually has the highest rate for the provinces, but they're not really significant. Not being mean to them, they're just not. And Ontario and Quebec are the two provinces that have basically the concentration of the population. Mm-hmm. And BC comes in third, but it's really Ontario is the big driving force of it. You have people like the CPSO who keep enabling it. That's what's really the barrier. And also, there hasn't been opportunity for it to be brought up in the court of law. Or it will get shut up before it does, like it might happen for me if I don't get enough backing by January. So I have some time. So the mediation is going to happen between November to January. I'll be filing a notice of name of mediator. Then after that, 90 more days, and I'll have the mediation session or maybe more. And I'll get to show them what my case is made out of. I'll get to give some conditions. And if nothing comes to the mediation and I have the prospect of pursuing with the discovery, I think you call it cross-examination in the States, then that will start racking up a lot of money on the defendant's side. So that would mean that the longer I go, the more my parents will have to pay if I back out, and the more they'll have to pay if I don't back out, and they fuck us over for no good reason, just because the judge has, well, it happened to me and I'm okay with it, so you should be okay with it too. That kind of mentality.
Cognitive dissonance, self-selection bias.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you should be mad about that or upset about it. So you're not, because I don't want you to be. Okay. So.
And you might not be able to ask the judge to recuse himself because of his bias.
Yeah, it would be a good idea to get someone from Denmark to say, you know what, I have a good idea. someone from an unbiased culture who isn't have this as their normative practice, they can come and give us some insight into how this is viewed outside of our little world in North America, where this runs amok here, and no one raises an eyebrow about it. And when you do, it's, oh, you want to say hi, you might offend someone.
Or at the very least, an intact judge.
Yeah, that would be nice. Hopefully not, judges who have, biases. I've heard of cases where they have people with obviously Yiddish names in HPARB deciding on cases about this. So it's like, you can't see that there might be a conflict of interest here where they have a vested interest in not wanting to, destabilize this practice because they believe in it for non-medical reasons.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Turn two. Are they trying to be inclusive or something? Well, what are they doing? Like, I mean, I don't care about the judge's religion, but when that bleeds in to the law and protecting patients, that's where there's a problem. I don't know why that's so controversial. Should be no
even in Israel, where Judaism is so strong, there's
law secular.
Their laws are. I've been impressed.
Canada in that way. It's not hard to be ahead of Canada in a lot of ways. Canada is all woke and progressive when it's really easy, when you can virtue signal about it. But when it's something that's not so fun to talk about or acknowledge, then all of a sudden everyone hides behind each other and says, no, it's standard of care, but religion. You're advertising your Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Oh yes, we're so good. We're so great. We're gonna save all children from harm, and we're just look at our nice advertisements about how great Canada is and how progressive and how much we care about rights.
Yeah.
Then you say, okay, I have something for you that you might really want to see done. Cool, in that case, come see this. And stick your head in the sand. You don't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
They're all talk and they never do the walk. That's what they are. It's disgraceful for it to have them to be so sluggish here when they really want to know better.
Yeah.
It's astonishing. It's so bizarre. This is one of those things that you'd have heard about. Ooh, they stopped that thing in the 20s and it was crazy. And I'm like, wow, glad they stopped it. It's like, nope, this thing just fell through the cracks. It's just still happening. In the information age, it's still happening.
So even if your case didn't move forward, you could still do like they say, direct his correspondence to organizations involved in setting those standards, such as the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada. Do you think they would listen?
No, they won't. Because I'm not advocating to change standard of care. I'm advocating to apply your standard of care reasonably and consistently in a way that serves the patient's best interests. That's all I want. I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
So the standard of care as it stands is correct, and what was done to you is not.
Yes, I'm arguing something that's not uncommon doesn't fall under the standard of care, and here's why. And they will not want to. The CPSO's job is to effectively regulate medicine in Canada, and they say that they uphold the standard of care, and they don't do that. Whenever there's something that's inconvenient, they can just say, "Oh, that is the standard of care. You just go to them."
Yeah.
They didn't do the work. They just, we don't want to touch that, but tend to pull to give to someone else. I know they can pass me around.
Yeah.
I want to go to the Ontario Human Rights Commission. They love human rights. They have all pages about genital mutilation, only for females, of course, which it's great that they have something for females. Females deserve protection from genital mutilation. Males are intersex people deserve it. Everyone deserves protection from unnecessary harm. That's really hard for some people to wrap their minds around. You would think that it wouldn't be in Canada, where we're the land of the free and the human rights inclined politicians who love talking about it. Of course, they just want to get reelected. They don't really care. They're not going to awaken the bear about this issue when it will cause controversy and they'll lose votes. Absolutely no incentive for people to change this status quo. They just want it to keep going because it's like they're kicking a soccer ball down a hill and like, no, next generation will have to deal with that.
Yeah. Hey, Andrew Yang spoke out about this a little bit, right? Yeah.
I know about his stance. To me, it seems that he had the right ideas, but he kind of really backed away from them.
Parents' choice still. Yeah, I know. He still he seems against it, aligned with intactivists, but parents' choice.
Okay, wow. I didn't know that parents can just have a choice to harm their child unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Isn't that called abuse?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
some
If
people
it's
really
harm,
made
it's
it tough.
harm. Period.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what kind of justification it is. If it's harmful, and if it's in spurious justification, if it's for some superstition or just some, in our family, we have this done to your body.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything else that happens like that here? I can't. Well, in the past it might have been, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I'm gonna have to, if we could
Okay.
wrap up soon. Wow, I
Yeah.
actually didn't notice how long we've been chatting.
It's been a couple 2 hours, 2.5 hours, like that now.
Oh.
So one of the things I did, I think I shared my blog with you, but I kept sharing I scanned the documents and everything like that and put them up on the website for everyone to read.
My documents?
That were interested. So I don't know if what else you might want to do. I know you're trying to get some funds to help protect you and your family.
Which documents were they redacted?
My documents.
Oh, your documents.
Yeah, my document when I was going through the federal court and everything like that. I was sharing my documents
for a
publicly
second.
on my blog. So but I wasn't ready. I mean, other than $500 to file, I wasn't like looking for people to hand me money or help me protect myself, because I wasn't really worried about the federal government coming back and say, well, we're going to charge you for the DA's time and all that stuff. Because they supposedly have a supportive system that supports people that want to go through a suit without the use of a lawyer, or attorney. So, but in your case, you are looking for help. So I'm just kind of wondering if there's any ways that I could help you give people that are looking at this some confidence. First of all, I mean, seeing your face would be one, and hearing from you as a real person, not just someone that's trying to scam money.
Oh yeah, people can never be too careful about that.
Yeah,
definitely, and I don't blame people for having reservations about sending money to people they don't know for reasons that they aren't totally. I want to be transparent for sure, and that's the only way to do this.
Okay. And do you have? It looks like you have a case number, something like that, with a CPSO. So that's something that people would be able to look up and see that this exists and this is attached to you. So that would give you
the thing is,
credibility.
One thing is that my identity would be totally, my last name and my city and everything would be, and that would be not desirable. Especially my parents are not a fan of being in the public eye about it, and I want to be able to just say what I need to say and get people, rally the troops basically for this. And I am in a dilemma because I've redacted a lot of documents and I've posted them, like my complaint, and it's it's less personal. You're seeing black boxes instead of I'm a real person. I am kind of, my hands are, I am forced to not at the moment be public with my identity. I can use my first name. I'm fine with that. But my location, to localize it, might be a little bit dangerous at the time. And I've had other people tell me, what's about this being anonymous? Why are you doing that? And I tell them, I'm comfortable talking about it. Here's an example of us talking about it for 2.5 hours, and I'm quite at ease with it. I don't have a problem with letting people inside my story and seeing, here's what's going on, here's what we're up against. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to get help through DOC, CHHRP, GA America, ARC, and Intact America as a kind of a buffer, like a proxy, so that them helping me, and if since they trust me, they know me, they have given my information, if they can facilitate a way to get backing for me, from themselves or from others, I can do what I can. Maybe I'll raise a couple $1,000, but without their help, I don't think I can do it without being totally public about my identity. And that's not the ideal situation. My parents are really worried about that. My mom told me that my mom was really upset when I told her I posted redacted documents. Well, when you sent the documents before, I was like, which documents? And all of a sudden I was like, wait, where are the ones I sent? And I was just like a false alarm. It was just like so when I even redacting documents, my mom said, people will find out, they can find the public record and they can find us. I was like, oh, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
But my mom's coming from a place of, in her family, she has had people target her family members for being business owners and stuff, and having any kind of public attention. There are insane people out there who want to make things difficult for people. For
when you look at other human rights scenarios, there was always someone that put themselves out there. Completely.
Yeah,
you look at
I'm going to do that. Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate to live in a country where I don't have to worry about being, attacked physically about things, because some people do live in countries. Like one person I admire a lot, very controversial, of course, but Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She's she's advocating against both.
She is, yeah. I watched a video of her saying that she thinks that MGM is worse than FGM.
Yeah, certainly it's more relevant right here, right now, because it's not abroad. It happens to us here all the time. And there's 4 types of FGM, and I think 2 of them are more invasive, 2 of them are less, and they're all wrong.
I think it's silly to try to waste time having an oppression Olympics. It's like, who cares who is harmed worse? It's all harm, so just stop it all. Why are we wasting our time trying to identify which sex is harmed worse?
They think that providing more protection for boys will somehow lessen protection for girls.
I get that, but they're wrong.
Providing protection for boys does not minimize, and it does not downplay the very real harms that happen to girls too. We want to, when there a problem exists, solve it.
I in fact I made a tweet the other day, and read it to you real quick. But it's basically, dang it, wrong one. There it is, Twitter, and I basically said that the key to end FGM, and I did a hashtag end FGM, is to, if I can find it again. Oh, here it is. Educating circumcised men about the ways they are harmed. Fight me.
Oh, you're asking for it.
So
you're saying, come at me.
Bring it on. I'd love to explain my reasoning, my thinking about this, and I with the help of my son, who's kind of artistic, we put together a weed picture. It has 3 leaves on it, and one shows male circumcision, the other side says female circumcision. In the middle, you got intersex normalization surgeries, and at the bottom you have the roots. And everyone knows that when you want to get rid of a weed, you pull it up by the roots. You don't pull one leaf. Go back. So
because the root idea is a cultural system in which people believe that they are entitled to force things onto a child's genitals for whatever reasons that they want. And we want to nip that mindset in the bud. We don't want it to fester on different branches of this nasty tree.
Exactly.
Right? You're saying makes total sense. Wow, you should make one of those. Who's that guy? Steven Crowder. He has the meme where it's changed my mind. He's sitting at the table.
Oh yeah.
Do it. Put it on one of those templates. He's something else. I don't agree with this dude. I just think that's funny.
I've seen lots of memes like that.
But it's funny to see the root because I like politics a lot, and I think I've gotten the idea that you do as well, and it's interesting to talk about it. Maybe one time, if you'd like to chat about that would be cool. But for now, I think what I need the most, I think the word spreading, and I talked with the board of directors member of DOC today, and he has faith in my case, and he's presenting it to other board members of their board of directors. So John Geishiker and this other one have been helping me as individuals, not as DOC, but if they can convince DOC to kind of put their backing behind me, that could be a big help. And if Intact America does the same, that would also be great, because I'm kind of getting in touch with some of their people, taking a little while, but I know that Intactivists have themselves spread so thin. There's so many fires that we're trying to put out, right? and it's
Yeah, there's so many things we can be doing. That is my I would love actually in a lot of ways just to do this 100% of my time, but I gotta pay the bills. So
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. People, when they become full-time activists, they give up a lot of stuff. Marilyn Miles told me all about it. She basically gave up, her job, right? And she, she lived very modestly. She told me
Yeah,
about how
I've been
she
to her
kind of
house.
lived for, oh wow, that she
Yeah,
had lived just from on a short-term basis, because she just, this was what she does, and
yeah,
she uses her skills to the best of her ability and her
yeah,
knowledge to help.
yeah.
And
And
it's
her
really,
organization created several books, like these 3 right here, or 4, 5,
wow.
6. Yeah, all these books right here are all created by her organization
Wow.
and with in coordination with some other doctors and stuff like that. But they're expensive books and they're not like bestsellers, so not enough money coming in from selling those books, unfortunately.
Yeah. I've gotten to talk to her 3 times so far, and she's really interesting to talk to. Right? She's
Yeah, she's
really,
sweet.
and yeah, really interesting person, and she has a lot of energy, and she's put so much of it into this cause, and she's really helped pave the way for others. And so I, yeah, it's I wonder how much I'll be able to do in my future. Hopefully, I won't be needed for 42 years
Yeah,
in this. Hopefully, it will not be a problem, like it shouldn't have been when she
yeah,
started
yeah.
doing her work. Yeah, so that's, I guess that's my
Okay,
plan, is I have months to see if I can raise enough
okay,
funds just as a way to take off the personal risk. And it would kind
yeah,
of make it so that I can go into it without kind of the idea of doom hanging over my head.
yeah, yeah.
Because
I
it's
hear you.
just, it's very, I can't back out of it right now.
Yeah,
I can't. And I don't want to stress out my parents. I don't want them to be open to this enormous risk. And my siblings and I, an extension, because there's not going to be money for us to go to grad school, or I mean, for me to
yeah,
do whatever, for us to do whatever you want. Our parents are not going to have anything to give if they're stuck paying these fees for
yeah.
the people who harmed me. So
People like you and I should be rewarded for identifying problems in
be
society, or
nice.
problems with big organizations or whatever. Even if we don't get rewarded the I asked for $1 million myself, but I was going to take all that $1 million to go educate people. I was going to put up billboards and advertisements and everything else to try to educate people to save them from doing what I almost did myself. But yeah, we should be applauded for doing this work, applauded for having the bravery to put our necks on the line, for example. So
Yeah, it's
so
sad
I'd
because most,
be happy to if you're you talk to your parents about this video or whatever, I can take this video and stick it on YouTube, and I'll put a link to the to the um to the fundraiser that you've got, and maybe this will help give people some confidence. And again, you're gonna, if there's anything about your case that you can copy and paste from your complaint document or whatever somewhere, so people can see it publicly, that will give people some confidence in your abilities. From a legal standpoint, you are very well spoken. I mean, this interview right here has proven that, and I think you're definitely capable, more than capable, of being an excellent lawyer in your future. So even if you lose money, doing this case, I think that you have a very bright future. Maybe as a bioethicist lawyer, maybe you'll be the next, Georgianne Chapin, or
who knows,
or Brian Earp, or something
or
like that,
Margaret Somerville or something.
or John
Well,
Geisinger.
there's a lot of possibilities. I will definitely, I have some doors open. I hope those doors won't close, because I hope to avoid school after this. I actually been wanting to apply to these schools and scholarships I've been looking at, and I've been thinking, I just don't have time. Well, I don't, because I don't know where I'm going to be. I might have to be in my home city for
Yeah,
conferences and stuff. I want to be going to my dream school, but I'm not. You've heard this.
yeah,
The sacrifice that I'm going to make. This is important. I can go to my school later. I like to
yeah,
now, but go later, because this is my priority, and it
yeah,
has been since the day I found out about it. it's crazy. I don't want it to be taking over my life, but it's just a necessary thing.
Yeah.
And
This isn't like you starting up a business in the garage like Steve Jobs did, or or
and
Bill
saying that,
Gates.
everyone, we need your help. It's like, I'm in this position. I don't want to be in this position. Yes, I voluntarily started the litigation, but I couldn't not do it. I had to do it.
Yeah.
It would be hard for me to just not do it and think, wow, I could have. Well, I guess someone else is going to have to do it down the road. It's like, it's going to happen somewhere. And I hope I can, if it's not me, I can at least help make it happen, because it's just, this is an overdue problem. It's been festering for so long, and just, there's all these obstacles in the way for people. And I'm in a unique position, do what I can to show our courts that this is, is wrong here.
Yeah. And
wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
The work you and I and other intactivists do, we might get the future generations intact genitalia, better operating, better working genitalia for eons to come. Are we going to get paid for that?
No.
Are we selling this genitalia? Nope.
People.
So we're taking a huge risk with basically zero gain.
Oh yeah, I mean,
we satisfy our hearts.
If we can bottle up and sell being intact, that would be great. I would do that.
I think Ron Lowe is, he's done some work there. He's making a little bit of money.
That's kind of like that. I would say it's like, you can't bottle and sell exercising and getting in shape, but people, once they do the work and they can get things to help them, certainly like those products that help people restore, that's a great thing. And so I think I'll try and keep in touch with you and see what we can do. I'll talk with my mom about this. I'd say that, of course, I think you would choose the best bits of our talk. There's a lot of good things to choose from. I think the things, to be honest, maybe that I would shy away from would be like the parts that were really, really detailed about like the anatomy of genitals. I'm comfortable with all that stuff, but it's a different idea of like, I don't know, just for me, in my comfort zone, being on the internet, I'm fine with talking about this stuff, but for me personally, it's like, I want just the most comfortable things to be the things that I'm on the internet for.
Yeah.
But those are important things, and I want to talk about them. It's just that for the purposes, if we're able to have this talk be public, which I want, that's what I would maybe think about. Or because I didn't name drop my home city anywhere, and I didn't name drop my last name or any individuals involved in what happened to me. So there's nothing really specifically troublesome about it. I'll communicate with my parents, see what they think. I mean, I don't have to do what they say. I would just I do want to respect their wishes, because my mom was really, really upset when it was mostly about the when I posted redacted documents. I thought, I want to be transparent. People know I'm legit. And so I redacted the statements of claims, the pleadings, and I was like, you know what, even if there's nothing on here, it's public documents, people can find it easily. And to have those documents might be not the best thing to have, even though I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just that I don't want to create any more problems for myself.
I understand. This is a lot of people change their names over this, and or use pseudonyms or whatever to hide their real names, so they can continue to get jobs or whatever.
And I'm not ashamed of anything I do or say. What I'm saying is the aim is to help people, to shed light on something that's wrong. And unfortunately, what we're talking about is a taboo in some people's minds. And
you should be regarded as a hero, not as
And the thing is that I guess people who make a lot of change, small groups of people who do, oftentimes, of course, they're not rewarded when they do it. Rarely are they remembered for it. So it's not a easy or forgiving thing to do. It's grueling. I haven't even been in it that long, and it's taken a big dent out of me just dealing with this issue. I don't want to deal with this issue. I want my school to be my biggest priority. I just want to be worried about the stuff that I do. That's just the typical stuff, And here I am, and I don't want to. I tell my parents I don't want to be here. I didn't want this lawsuit to just. If I was intact, I probably wouldn't be doing this, because I wouldn't be so affected. I'd still care about it if I knew.
Mhm.
I just wouldn't be having really big difficulties dealing with it. Anyways,
Yeah.
thanks again for
Welcome in.
this good talk.
Thank you.